Hello, everybody. Welcome. If you can hear me, please give me a thumbs up. All right, great. Let's get started. Tesla is down 2%. Markets are down also 2%. NASDAQ down 2%. Dow Jones down 1.4%. All sectors are down today. JP Morgan. Any questions, comments, please request to speak. How about Tesla? How are you?
Hi, Yaman. How are you doing?
I'm good. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
How about now? Can you hear me better now?
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, you're cutting off on my end. I need a satellite. I need like a portable satellite to carry on my head, to wear on my head like a Starlink dish. What do you think about that idea?
Yeah, hopefully Starlink will be portable soon. Real portable.
Do you think SpaceX can make a Starlink hat? Now that I'm bold, I can maybe protect against the sunlight. You know, how's the rollout going?
Pretty good. I only have a few minutes, so I'll just give you a quick update. So it's a big wave in the rollout just started less than an hour ago. So it's going wide. Around 15% of the fleet, maybe even more before it's on, and I mean the fleet in the US and Canada. So it's initial waves that we had, the previous couple of waves, they were almost exclusively focused on legacy Model S and Model X cars, and also the Model 3 refresh. So just those three versions that didn't have V12 until now. So that was the primarily focus until now. But now it looks like it's going to all models, all sexy models at once, both hardware 3 and hardware 4. Still, the latest branch, the 2024.8 software branch, is not eligible. So anyone on that version will have to wait until they do the merge. But everyone else will probably be moved to this version of the weekend, it looks like.
Thank you. James Weber.
Yeah, thanks, Yaman. Hey, how's it going? I was just going to share that I am based in Chicago. I have a hardware for Model Y. I was previously on FSD 12.3.2.1, and about 2 hours ago, I did get the update to 12.3.4. So I haven't gotten out to drive it yet. I've been working, but just wanted to hop on and share that.
Thank you, James. About there's a question for you. So Meta and I were trying to put together a coffee bet yesterday, and we were unable to do so. And the reason why we couldn't is because we couldn't agree on does a release have to go to be considered as a release. What do you think?
Sorry, you were cutting off. So you were not able to agree on what?
On a coffee bet with Meta, because we could not agree on how wide a release needs to go to be considered a release. So he said that Tesla will probably target weekly releases and maybe miss, every now and then. So he proposed maybe we'll get 7-8 releases this quarter. But we couldn't agree on, like, if it goes out to only 100 people, that I don't think should count as a release. So I said 10% of the fleet, and we'll use about Tesla's numbers. And he said, no, instead, let's use, 100 people on Tesla 5. If it goes above 100 people, then it should be considered release. But I think that's too small. What do you think?
100 people is too small. 100 people, that's just about 1% of what they have. So it's. I think you need to have at least 20-25% to consider it wide release. So anything below 25% is not really wide release. It's more like a specialized release. I don't think you need to expect more than 50% because they usually keep it spread between different versions. So they intentionally keep some of the fleet on older versions. So, but anywhere between 10 to 25%, I think would be reasonable.
Yeah, that's what I said. Thank you. When he comes in here, you can tell him that. All right. What do you think? How many releases do you think Tesla will have in Q2? So, people have been out there talking about how an increasing pace of releases indicates an increasing pace of progress. I don't think that's true. And how do you think about that?
Well, I overheard part of that conversation yesterday, and I think Meta was right, saying that they will target for weekly updates, but they may not happen weekly because if they run into some issues early enough, they will just skip the cycle. So I think a couple of weeks would be a reasonable cycle, but maybe they will try to do more frequently. It's unlikely for them to do it like daily or every couple of days releases. It just doesn't work that way. They need some time to do the quality assurance, to do some run the tests and everything. But the weekly cycle that will slip to bi-weekly occasionally, I think that's reasonable to expect.
Okay. You think each one of those will go to 10 to 25% of the fleet?
It will depend on how big the changes are and how confident they are in particular release. I think they will move majority of the fleet to certain versions. So there is really no reason to keep too many versions in the field. They will probably focus on like 2-3 most recent releases, and will try to update pretty much everyone to those. So that would be my expectation, except that there is this also the issue of parallel branches, like the UI development goes in parallel, and they don't want or just don't have enough time to do the merge too often. So that may create some delays. Like right now we have the 2024.8 branch that is lagging behind on the FSD, and I don't think that's intentional. It's just probably just they didn't have time or didn't have enough resources to do the merge, which is an undertaking. But they will do it. So I'm assuming probably this month. So hopefully everyone will be brought to a newer version that a more stable version, and that will probably be more than 50% at that time.
Great. James, how was your experience on FSD so far?
So I have not driven the 12.3.4, but 12.3.2.1 was amazing. It's been really excellent. All the things for a while I had a YouTube channel. I just haven't updated anything on there for a long time because it just kept doing all the same things wrong. And now finally that's not the case, and it's solved all like the things that seemed difficult, like large speed bumps. It acts a lot more human like. I live in Chicago, so you've got to skirt around traffic. There's lots of unprotected left turns. If you don't go around them, you'll get held up at the light. So you'd have to disengage. Otherwise, you're sitting at a light cycle for like 3 cycles. And things like that. Now the car just drives like a human. It just goes around traffic. It makes really effortless, unprotected left turns, right turns. The speed bumps are great. You know, there's still occasional wonkiness. Yesterday on 3. I guess it was 3.3 that I've been running. There was a truck taking a left turn in front of me at a green light intersection, and my car continued moving straight, and we got extremely close to them. Like, we kept going forward assuming that they would finish their turn, but they had to slow down a little bit, and the front of my car got about 4 inches away from them, like the back corner of their truck. So there are a few things like that where it's aggressive in some ways that it shouldn't be, and then it's timid in other ways that it really should be more aggressive. Like, you're at a T intersection stop sign and it's creeping, and it's obvious no one else is around, and everyone else, if they were coming, would have a stop sign. So it's not clear as to why it's so timid in those situations. But on the whole, way more comfortable, way more human like, all around amazing. So I'm excited to take 12.3.4 out later this afternoon.
All right, Wes.
Hey, I got 3.4 on my 2017 X and just finished a 20-minute drive. It drove me and my son all the way to Great Clips, which was pretty awesome. And no safety issues. Comfort was good. Auto speed was good. I asked my son to let me know if he realized that I wasn't driving, and he couldn't tell for just about anything except for driving a little bit too far to the right in some occasions on a laned road. So amazing. So we're going to keep driving. We got a lot more driving to do today, but again, no safety critical issues. It does all the hard things that I've thrown at it, and it does it all perfectly. There's one turn that it never has done ever, and it does it every time now. And it's a really dangerous off camber, non 90 degree, high speed traffic kind of obscured vision, and it does it every time now. And it had never done it on 11, and it does it every time. It's done it 10 times in a row. So it's pretty cool. And let's see, one other thing. Dirt roads, unfortunately, has regressed for me. So it stays too far to the right. And so my dirt roads are gravel, and it's a high, there's, big washouts on the side. So like it's too far to the right. So I'm expecting that will get better in subsequent updates. But the other stuff, all the really important stuff, is really good. So anyway, that's my update.
Thank you. And for the longest time, you had issues with multi-lane roundabouts. How is that doing so far?
Yeah, those are, again, totally solved. It's pretty amazing how human that feels now. I've started to notice as I approach the 2-lane roundabout how other cars in front of me do not handle it as well as FSD now. They either come to like a full stop when there's nobody coming, or they can't figure out which lane to be in and they change lanes at the last minute because they realize that going straight on some of these 2-lane roundabouts, you have to be in the left lane and sometimes you don't. And so they're not reading the signs, but FSD has done it right every time. And I'm not sure if it's reading the signs or if it's remembering the kind of the hints or looking at road paint or getting some type of map data. So, but it's working. That's the amazing thing. And I've gone through, I don't know, at least 40 roundabouts, two-lane roundabouts in different fashions. So, making a right turn or going straight or effectively taking the third exit or taking the fourth exit. And you have to change lanes, to take the fourth exit to do 180s. And it does that. On some roundabouts you do. So it's been pretty amazing, like completely different from 11.
All right, great. Wes, I keep getting questions whether the car is learning locally on the car. Have you seen anything that would change our previous answer to that, which is there's no learning done on the car?
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. So I'm not saying that it is, but here's my experience. So I have, after I come off my dirt road, I have a single lane paved section, and then it turns into a striped one way, or one lane each way. And there's no houses, but you soon get into houses, and the speed that it goes. This is why I asked my son to let me know if he knew it wasn't me driving, because the speed that it went was perfect. Like, it's a 25 mile an hour road at first, but there's nothing there. So it went 35, which is normally what I do. And then as soon as I got into where there's houses and there's people and there's a trail, it slowed down to like 31. And then as I was passing this really busy trail, there wasn't, any people there, but it slowed down to 29. It was kind of eerie how similar it drives to me. I'm not saying I'm a perfect driver or anything, but is it learning for me? I don't know, but it was interesting. I hadn't seen this on my Model 3 with 3.3, so I'll have to do more drives to kind of glean that level of understanding of what's happening. So anyway, that's my feedback so far.
But even if it's learning from you, it's not doing on the car in that instant, right? It's sending data up to the mothership and maybe then, right?
Well, it's feasible that they could be learning potentially in real time, like potentially giving extra weight to feedback. Like, for instance, on the dirt road, when it was too close to the right, I disengaged and I, steered back to where I would normally drive, and then I put it back on and it started to drive there instead of close to the edge. It took 2 or 3 of the turns fine at more or less the same speed that I would usually drive, but then it reverted back to being too close to the edge, and I thought that was odd. So more data, I think, is needed for that. If they were to be doing some type, I don't think they're doing like quote learning at the edge in the car in real time, but they could be adjusting weights potentially as you get a little bit of driver feedback. And my son actually asked me if the cloud profile could potentially be augmented to have that level of data. And I thought maybe it could. That could be something that they're playing with. I can't imagine that they'd put a lot of weight in that, though. Sorry, that's an overuse of the word weight. That they would put a lot of effort behind that because, they kind of want it just to be a safe and good driver overall. But I thought that was interesting.
Thank you.
And I have to drop for a second.
Okay, James and then Reggie.
Yeah, thanks, Yaman. I did just hop in the car, so I've got a 12.3.4 for the first time, and this is in comparison to version 12.3.3. I'm not sure if I've seen this reported at all, but what I could notice is the visualizations overall look sharper. So when you are driving in FSD or even just manual driving, all the car animations look mildly upscaled than they used to. So that's one thing. The second thing is when you're driving very slowly and it moves into the, I think it's called the high fidelity park assist. Those visuals look much, much sharper. There seems to be a lot more refinement in the geometry around you of different objects. So when I come out of my garage, there's dumpsters, there's poles, there's different entrances to various garages. All of the lines of everything inside of the car were very accurate, at a degree that's higher than the previous version. So I feel like there must have been a little bit of refinement in those areas. Overall, the driving seems great. It doesn't seem very changed. It seems on par with 12.3.3 at the moment.
Great, thank you. Reggie and then Eric.
Yeah, just kind of getting a conversation with Wes talking about memorization. So I have 3 instances of far as just behavior. I'm on 12.3.3. So I took my family to the movie theater, and this is my testing ground because the parking lot's empty. So obviously, when the movie starts, it's not. But as you get into this movie theater, we're gonna set the scene. There's a little section of kind of like a little roundabout, if you will, like a U, that's far off from. But it's the first thing you get into. But it's far off, so it's not even in front of the movie theater. And the car never went into this little roundabout. It always parked like it's kind of dropping you off in between it, if you will, like a half moon in between it. But when it seen there was cars in that little roundabout, it put on its blinker and went into the roundabout. And then it figured out while I was in there that it's not the spot that I need to drop you off in. So it ended up getting out, turning away from it and going into the front of the movie theater. I thought that was interesting that it's kind of seeing its surroundings and assuming that, hey, this is where cars should go. On the same instance as we coming back, because I'm still the only one, I guess, figured out how to have your car FSD pull into your driveway. If you want to know more about that, it's in my pinned it in my profile there. But there was this coming back home. There's not a 4-way stop, but it's a 4-way. It looks like a 4-way stop, but the main traffic that I was on does not have the stop signs, but the intersections do. The car in front of me, it's in my neighborhood, so again, that's the residence. The car in front of me somehow wanted to stop and let the car from the right pull out to make the right, and my car slowed down. Obviously, it never done this in 100 times. It never done this, but it actually stopped and did the same behavior as the other car. It stopped in the middle in the middle of the road, waited, and then took the left, like it was still trying to stop there and try to mimic the other driver behavior. And my wife thought that was odd, but I was like, well, it's remembering what it's doing. So, in any case, just some new nuances of FSD as it come through. But again, my biggest thing now is just testing how to make the car 100% pull into the driveway after the drives is what I've been really focusing on.
Thank you. Reggie, as you talk now for the last few days, there's a clicking noise in the background. What is that noise?
Oh, it's clicking?
Yeah, there's a clicking noise coming in the background.
Oh, I don't. There's nothing clicking in here, so other than some humming from my computer, but that's about it.
I don't know.
Hmm.
Interesting. Eric?
Oh, hey, yeah. Has anyone had an issue with the car stopping on a stop sign that's not necessarily on the right side, but the left side of the road? I have an area where I drive basically every day, and it's the only stop sign that it never really stops for. So I'm wondering if it's somehow programmed to look for a specific site, or it's weird.
I haven't had that situation.
All right. If anybody in the audience has, please request to speak. All right, I want to look into this NHTSA or NTSB issue with Mach-E a little bit. So Omar posted today another article from Drive Tesla Canada. I'll pin this at the top of your screen so you can follow along if you want to. But let's read this real quick. National Transportation Safety Board has launched another investigation into a second fatal crash involving Ford's Mustang Mach-E and 2 stationary cars. The agency will be investigating whether Ford's driver assist system Blue Cruise has been active at the time of the crash. The NTSB concluded this week that Blue Cruise was active in another crash in Austin involving a Mach-E and a Honda CR-V that had broken down and was sitting stationary in the middle of a highway. Oh my gosh. In an update to their website this week, the NTSB said it was looking into the accident from March 3, 2024, when a Mustang Mach-E collided with 2 stationary passenger cars on Interstate 95 near Philadelphia. Unfortunately, both drivers of the stationary vehicles were killed in the accident. We are investigating a fatal crash involving a Ford Mustang Mach-E electric-powered SUV. The Ford collided with a 2012 Hyundai Elantra and a 2006 Toyota Prius. Both the Hyundai and Toyota were stationed in the travel lanes of I-95 and were struck from behind by the Ford. The crash occurred in Philadelphia on March 3, the agency wrote. Ford has commented on the investigation, saying it is cooperating fully with the NTSB and Pennsylvania State Police. As we told you yesterday, the preliminary results from the NTSB investigation into an earlier crash involving a Mach-E and a stationary vehicle in Austin, Texas, found that Blue Cruise was active. Ford Blue Cruise is advertised as a hands-free driver assist system, which is designed to manage steering, braking, and acceleration on highways. Both the NTSB and NHTSA have previously investigated multiple crashes involving Tesla's autopilot system. After a 2-year investigation, the NHTSA found no fault with the capabilities of autopilot, but required Tesla to increase the safeguards to prevent driver misuse of the system. Interesting. About Tesla, what do you think about these 2 accidents that the Mustang Mach-E Blue Cruise had so far?
Mach-E has the radar, right? I believe they do. I'm not positive, but so maybe it's time for them to abandon radar, like Tesla did.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. So it has radar and it's advertised as hands-free, whereas Tesla doesn't have radar and you have to hold your hands on the wheel, extremely sensitive eye tracking and everything. Yeah,
The problem
we'll see
with
what comes up.
the problem with the radar is that it has difficulty distinguishing the static objects. So just too much noise is coming from the static objects, so it's much more difficult to differentiate them. For moving objects, it's much easier because they have speed different from the environment. But for static objects, it's much more difficult. So, and in case as the reason why Tesla decided to drop it, because it's really, who do you trust? I mean, if Vision says one thing and the radar says another thing, who do you trust? And it looks like in some cases, radar may be helpful, but in some cases it may give you a false information. Like it say, oh no, I don't see anything. We're good.
All right. We had one more topic for today to discuss a potential. Somebody tweeted that Tesla should acquire Uber, and this is edgy. And I get often, ideas about Tesla acquiring other companies, and M&A doesn't make much sense, especially at that size for Tesla. But I want to kind of bring him up and talk about it so that we can use a case study to maybe dig into a little bit more. But he says he's not going to be able to come in until another half hour or so. So in the meantime, any questions, comments, please request to speak. We talked about FSD. James is on 12.3.3. Reggie. Wes talked earlier about 12.3.4. Reggie shared his experience about Tesla, talked about the rollout. Any questions, comments, please request to speak. Otherwise, I'll be on mute. Grant?
Hey, how's it going? Who tweeted about the Uber acquisition, or where's the tweet? I'm curious on that.
Grant, go ahead.
Oh, hey, I was saying, I was curious who tweeted about Uber M&A or where that tweet is.
He just predicted that there would be I mean, we can't say that for when he visits, but I think I know what you're going to say. You and I are probably on the same page on that.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting idea, but it seems tough.
Yeah, here, I pinned it at the top. He makes a prediction that Tesla will buy Uber, and this tweet got more than 300,000 views. So, anyway, Yoda?
Yeah, just listening into that, I think, buying Uber would be buying, obviously its customer base. It's almost like buying, X, buying Twitter, just for its customer base. And I think Elon's idea was that it would accelerate if he were to build it from scratch, build X from scratch by about 3 years. So there's definitely that benefit. I think that the issue is how do you get rid of the drivers? Now, that may actually be the drivers may be an asset in the beginning if in an initial regulatory requirement requires that you have someone who supervise robotaxi. So even though they're feature complete, you still need someone to actually have oversight. And if that was the case, if that's how things are going to play out in the initial 2 years or let's say X number of years, then the Uber acquisition would actually accelerate the adoption of the robotaxi network.
My question is more how that would get financed. I mean, it's like $150 billion business. I just don't know that there is $150 billion lying around.
Well, it would have to be a stock issuance, right, Grant?
Maybe, but even that, I mean, that's just not the sort of thing that happens. Typically, you'd want Uber's board of directors to sign up for Tesla stock in exchange for their current Uber stock, which is likely not something they would want to do.
Yeah, and Uber might have.
It depends on the price, but obviously it's not impossible.
Anything's possible. Yep.
Yoda?
Yeah, and obviously there's other players. So if Uber's market cap is too large, or that Uber's breadth of businesses are too broad, then obviously there's more pure plays like Lyft in North America. There's actually in the Chinese market, there's Didi and a few other sort of rideshare networks, um, and potentially to get around regulatory approvals in markets like China. Um, the make or buy, my favorite buy, to sort of appease the situation in China, which may actually speak to um, the year of a dragon, um, you know, reference.
All right. Let's see. Grant, did you close all your shorts on the stock?
No, I've got some open. I've taken some off, but I've added some puts as well for different time periods. I did add some puts for post earnings.
So these are just 2-3 weeks out. What do you expect will happen after the earnings announcement?
I don't know. I mean, I really don't. It's not a big bet. It's just, I think that there's a chance that it goes down a good bit. It'll be interesting to see how they try to spin the quarter. I mean, I think we discussed this a while ago. They'll probably be looking to recognize a lot of the FSD deferred revenue to offset which should be a really weak EPS number. So it's possible that they hit their target, but I think most analysts will probably see through that because it'll just be a one-off from that recognition decision. And then I don't know. I mean, it'll be interesting to see what the spin is. I think that Elon does have a cool talk track. I mean, if I was Elon, I would just spend the entire time talking about FSD V12. I would talk about how many people have taken advantage of the free offers that are on the table and how many miles people are driving and all that sort of thing. So I think you want to refocus people on the AI hype rather than the actual pretty bad numbers.
Yoda, what do you expect will be the headline following the earnings release?
Yeah, I'm actually thinking that potentially there could be a buyback announcement. So in anticipation to a very negative earnings release, and couple that with the turning on of FSD to the masses, I feel like there could be a opportunity here for a buyback. Now, of course, it might be interesting for the speakers to think about. Like if you had X billions of dollars, is that best at this point to do a buyback or to allocate all that to H100s or advertising?
Grant?
Yeah, I think there's a 0% chance that there's a buyback. They will likely burn cash in Q1. There will be a lot of questions from analysts on the call around what the rest of 2024 is going to look like. And if that is bleeding that can be stopped, it's just not remotely the right time to do a buyback. I think there's a much better chance they announce a RIF than a buyback. I mean, I think I've said before on this space that I think there's a really good chance that you see some RIFs in Tesla that I'm sure will be papered over by this idea that like, oh, we're using AI and we're getting more efficient, but like they don't have a lot of money lying around right now. It's a precarious time for the company. I'm not saying they're going bankrupt or something, like they're fine, but like it's just not the right time to do a buyback.
Well, I just created a poll. So the poll is at the top of your screens. And what would you do with another $1 billion for Tesla investors? Okay, there are 4 options, the ones that Yoda just counted. Stock buybacks, buy more H100s, advertising, and other. So you can vote at the top and leave a reply with any specifics. Yoda, what would you do?
I would do a buyback because, again, the stock will be depressed coming out of Q1 earnings release, and then with the opportunity for FSD. And I really like what's happening right now, where potentially Elon will consider adjusting the price, the subscription price of FSD. It's amazing how they can do this from a mathematical standpoint, much like how Netflix can, kind of adjust pricing in order to achieve and maximize revenue per user. The fact that an automaker can do this almost reminds me of, what if Samsung had created Netflix and actually sold both the hardware, the TVs, as well as the content.
Interesting. James Weber, what would you do?
I said that I would buy more H100s and also dojos. So I think doubling down on their investment. I really want to know how things are progressing. Yes, they're still buying lots of NVIDIA hardware, but I just have this gut instinct that the dojo plan is still ramping kind of stealthily behind the scenes. But we need more we need that to be verified from Tesla.
Yeah, that's what Wes says. Wes believes that Tesla is being kind of, lowballing about Dojo rollout, Dojo projects. But I guess we'll find out more at some point. Meta, what would you do with an extra $1 billion?
Superchargers and service centers.
Yeah, I should have added that on there. I should have added on there instead of advertising and just pissed off all the advertiser.
Hey, I like advertising.
Superchargers are advertising.
Yeah, there you go. Grant.
Yeah, I voted for advertising. I like that, but also just building a new production plant somewhere. I mean, like that's a very high ROI use of capital for this business, right? Why don't they do that?
Ken says he would pay attorney fees. That's so funny. Ken has a really good sense of humor. Grant, sorry, what did you say exactly? I was really distracted by Ken's joke.
Yeah, no worries. I was just saying advertising was my vote, but also I think just breaking ground on a new production plant somewhere. I mean, theoretically, that's one of the higher value.
Oh, we have excess capacity right now. On
Yeah,
all
but
of our
I mean,
factories.
I don't know. Well, isn't there all this news cycle stuff about Elon going and meeting with folks in India about a plant there or the Mexico plant? Like, is that just on hold until what exactly?
Meta.
Yeah, I think the India situation is different because they can't import the cars to India easily. But there was some news about India relaxing the import tariff. If they relax the import tariff for a few years, you don't have to build the plant. You can just import the cars for a little while, make sure there's actually demand, and then build the plant.
Somebody replied to the question, what would you do with $1 billion? And this person said, $10 billion buyback. You can do a $10 billion buyback with $1 billion. That's very impressive. It's a 10x engineering return right
you
there.
can. You just buy shit coins with it first, Yaman, and then when it pops 300 times, then you can buy more share buybacks. definitely not.
Meta,
finding
we have one of the replies. You're gonna really like this one. This person said Bitcoin. Meta just fell off his chair. Who had their hand up just a second ago? Was it Grant? We have a lot of answers in that poll. That's crazy. Lots of different answers in the replies.
I think it was me. I was just gonna say, I think the India tariff relaxation was pretty minor. I think it was only for like 10,000 cars. I mean, I don't think India is actually a good market for Tesla in any case, especially without a cheaper model. But yeah, I don't know. I just think it's interesting that, you know, at least on the surface, there's still this goal for like 50% CAGR annually. But if you ever are going to come close to that, you need to be breaking ground on like 2 factories today.
Okay, Wes.
Sorry, I don't know the topic, but did more FSD driving and I have feedback.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so again, no issues. It drives a little bit close to the right, but I haven't really had any indication that it's going to curb me. I've been going places that I usually never go, but I know are very difficult, and it's done everything. So I'll just be honest, like at this point, I don't know how to break it. If anybody has an idea of like how to break it, you know, because I want to try to make it fail, I'm all ears.
Wait. Does that mean you're capitulating on the coffee bet?
Well, I need to drive more. You're right. So like after I get done with this appointment, I'm gonna drive more, probably for another hour or so. So I'm gonna again try more roundabouts, but it just did more really difficult single lane roundabouts that are brand new, that are by the new Costco headquarters. So went over there. A lot of foot traffic, a lot of cars going back and forth. And I also noticed something interesting that I think you might like, Meta. The new Costco headquarters has these very shiny windows that reflect other cars going through. And it was actually confusing other people. And I think somebody came to a stop because they thought a car was coming, but it was the reflection off another car. And I thought that was really interesting that, you know, didn't bother FSD at all, but it bothered this other driver. And we also noticed a couple other people who had trouble with a roundabout. Like they should have been going and they were free to go, but they didn't go, they waited. So I find that FSD is now better than like the average driver, at least what I'm seeing so far.
That sounds like we won half the bet, Yaman.
Yeah, I'm almost capitulating at this point because I can't break it. Like I'm trying, but I honestly I can't break it.
Honestly, Meta, I'm thinking about exiting your side of the bet. I'm gonna go to the creator of this bet and appeal my case. If you win, it's all you. I pretty much gave up on this one.
Well, Wes just capitulated, so I already won half, and you just left. So does that mean I win both shares?
Yeah, I guess so. There's no evidence you won anything so far. Hold on, James.
Yeah, I was just going to share. So I'm also currently around driving 12.3.4, and it's doing really well in crowded urban city streets of Chicago. And one thing I've noticed, I'm feeling a lot less awkward. It doesn't seem as hesitant as it was on 12.3.3. And then it's also doing really well with bikers. There's a lot of streets in Chicago that have a dedicated bike lane. It's been doing well with those for a long time. But where there's like an implied bike lane and you have to share the road with a biker and there's no specific painted bike lane, it's doing really well with those. Bikers are coming up from behind. There was even a situation just a little while ago where there was a car about 200 feet in front of me starting to pull out of a parking spot. There was a biker behind me. So both me and the biker were going to get to that car at the same time. And my car eased out over the median line and kind of gave enough room for both me and the biker to make the room around the pulling out car, which is exactly how a human would do it. Previous FSD versions would have like slammed on the brakes or freaked out. It did a really good job with that.
Thank you, Reggie.
Hey, Wes, I have one for you. Obviously, it's a little unfair because FSD is not ready for parking, but I would try. I don't know how old your kids are, but
No, it can't be
well,
parking.
it's not parking.
Yeah, it's not. It's
No,
not
it's not
good
for parking. But follow me.
Good
Follow
try,
me here.
Reggie.
Yeah, follow me here. It's I don't know how old your kids are, but pick up the pickup part of it and standing in a line. FSD hates standing in a line that you have to obviously follow the queue up to the front. It always tries to go out of the out of the line to get to the front, right? So that's the only thing I've seen that it's
Okay, that's cool. So there's a spot in this downtown area that I'm at where I know that it always queues up, and you have to get in line. So I'll give that a shot. So thanks, appreciate that.
No hands mode, no hands mode, Amy.
Okay, I have one for you, Wes, and this is going to be hard maybe to reproduce, but it's single pole a roadway gate, and you have to, in this particular one, come to a stop before you get to it. Otherwise, you're going to run into it, and it just won't do that.
Oh, you mean like just a pole gate that goes up as you
Yeah,
approach it? Is that what you mean?
right. Yeah, normally a lot of them, they go up automatically, but when you enter, like if you're going into some developments, they don't want people to chain themselves, like multiple cars go in through once
Yeah.
the gate goes
Gotcha.
up. Yeah,
Yeah,
and
we
this
don't have those
one,
here, unfortunately.
yeah, so this one you have to come to a stop and it won't do it.
Okay, gotcha.
Mike?
Hey, Wes. Yesterday I'm on 12.3.3. I came to a left turn. I was in the left lane for a left turn. There was a green light for straight and a red left turn light. The green light indicating straight was enabled. So the straight green circular light allowed for straight traffic, but the left turn signal stayed red, and my car started going left, and I had to disengage.
Sorry, you cut out a little bit. What did your car started to go and then you disengaged? Is that what you said?
Correct.
Okay. Interesting. I did that too, but mine did the correct thing. So maybe that's a fractional issue. So obviously I'll keep trying those things.
Hey, Wes, did the for 3.4 is the red light flashing? Has that been fixed?
I don't know. And I don't have a place that I know that I can try that at, but I don't think that they've addressed that yet. I think somebody else has tried and I can't remember who, but that's one where I feel like that's just not in their training set, or they just haven't focused on that. It's not a priority, like construction zones. In fact, I do have a construction zone that I'm going to try today. So I'm going to try to see how well it handles that. Oh, I did go through some flaggers and that actually worked pretty well. It was too cautious around a construction worker who was walking towards the lane, and it started to slow down quite a bit, but not too bad.
Was that construction worker walking towards the lane behind a barrier? Because I've noticed
No.
when there's people behind cones, it still freaks out.
No, she was walking up to the lane. She was probably like 5 feet when she stopped. So her kinematics froze. And then she started vigorously waving me forward and like leaning forward and waving. And FSD was still slowing down, unfortunately. But then started to pass very slowly. The other lady who was holding the other, stop sign on the other side of the construction area, she waved at me because she saw how far we had slowed down. So she actually appreciated that, but who knows?
I was just going to also add for 12.3.4, I can confirm that when you're on the highway and then when you come off, there's still that kind of like very subtle switch between the highway and city street stack. You can see it kind of change over in the visualizations. So that is still present.
Yeah, the 11 stuff, I know they have to get migrated over to 12. So I get that. I'm kind of focused on urban stuff, but I appreciate reminding.
Yeah, I just got off of Lakeshore Drive. I had it route me home, so I did like a 1 mile ride on the quote unquote highway and just noticed that and figured I'd share.
Meta, earlier I had about Tesla up here saying that I specifically asked them, what do you think is a reasonable way to determine what a wide release is? And he said 10 to 25% of the fleet counts as wide release. Those are his words. I did not put 10% in his mouth.
The problem with those numbers is how is anyone calculating how wide a release is when TeslaFi doesn't have 100% of users?
Yeah, I think 10% is a reasonable figure. So I think you should take that bet instead of backpedaling.
Hey, look, I offered. You didn't take the offer. The terms are going to get worse with every passing day.
You offered 100 people. That's like Elon's 100 friends.
No, the reason why I said that is, and I linked to a graph, is if you wanted to exclude 12.3.1, I picked a number that would have excluded that, but not
Okay,
excluded
I know.
any of the other
That's fine.
releases.
That's fine. All right. Let's see.
There is something else to consider, which is the manual QA overload. So as long as they're doing dedicated drives around like Chuck's left turn and various other things, it may actually come to a point where weekly releases might be too hard for them, and maybe they just do bi-weekly releases. But I suspect it won't be because of computational power. It'll be because of human power.
Okay. Yoda, what do you think about the price drop from, or likely price drop from $199 to $99 a month?
I like it because right now the priority is acquiring users and the data. So if by lowering the price increases the take rate, it just accelerates the goal towards 6 billion miles.
Grant, what do you think the price drop could do to FSD take rates?
Honestly, no idea. I mean, V12 is going to move them up probably. The trial is going to move them up. I just don't know. I mean, it's going to be really interesting to see what happens, and not just like the take rate, but in particular on the subscription side, the retention rate. Like there are going to be some people that pay once, but then are they going to be there in 6 months? I don't know.
Yoda?
Yeah, I think assuming that reducing the price increases the take rate, and increasing the take rate accelerates miles, and by reaching the critical mass of miles, call it 6 billion or 6.9 billion miles, allows Tesla to reach full self-driving, unsupervised full self-driving, then you would think that the difference of $99 or $100, once the driver doesn't need to pay attention to the road and becomes a passenger, I bet you there's 99 ways Tesla can make up the $99. There's so many services that can be added on once the passenger doesn't need to pay attention to the road. So I feel like that trade-off might be painful in the short run, but there's ways to make money once the driver slash passenger becomes passive.
Meta, what do you think about the price drop?
I think it doesn't hurt them personally to drop the price. I think $99 is a good price. $25 a week or $5 a day for people who are commuting seems like it's in line with paying tolls. So there's a much higher population that pays tolls for convenience and lower stress. I think that's kind of where they gotta market this. It has to be at least as convenient as going in a fast lane.
But Meta, on that point, FSD is not like for tolls; it's for the city driving. They have autopilot for any type of highway driving. So
I understand that. I was referring to like the qualitative value people are getting.
yeah, for people that I've talked to, it's less about the money. It's more about, well, the reference says, do you want me to pay that much money, the $12,000 subscription fee? And the nags are what kills them, right? They're like, and I still have to watch, I still have to pay attention to my car. I think that's the biggest opportunity there, is to try to reduce the number of nags that's on a car.
Machine. Machine.
You have to unmute yourself, Machine. I know you're new to this, but there's that little microphone button in the bottom left.
Oh, you know what it is? He probably didn't need to be a speaker. So, it's such a weird feature of these spaces that if somebody, like if I send a invite to speak to somebody and they leave the space and when they come back as a speaker, even if they
No,
don't
no,
want to be a speaker.
no. There's two buttons. There's accept and speak, and there's just accept.
Oh, okay. So he picked the wrong button. All right. So by year end, before we switch, so Peggy is here. We can talk, kind of hear him out on why he believes Tesla will acquire Uber. But before that, can we get a round predicting number of FSD users? So assume the subscription price goes down to $99 a month. What do you think will be the number of FSD users by the end of the year? Metal, let's start with you.
Somewhere between 1 to 1.2.
Okay. Yoda?
1.5.
Wow. Mike?
Sorry, what was the question, Yaman?
Reggie?
I say 1.3, and it'll be 100% of all enhanced autopilot people will subscribe, because it'll be $50 a month, and I'll pay that for FSD.
Well, I would be surprised if that also dropped too. Do you think Tesla will drop that as well to like 49?
They would have to.
It's currently
Why?
$99 for people
Right.
who have EAP.
It's currently $99 now.
Well, I understand, but why do they have to drop it further?
I mean, that's a loaded question, but it's just the way it should be.
I don't
They'll
think so.
raise the prices for people who have EAP. How about that?
We get the $200. Right.
Oh, okay, there you go. Because you have EAP, that's why. Gotcha. James?
Sorry,
Grant?
say again.
Grant?
Is the question paid users or just? I mean, it's being
Paid
given away
users,
for
yeah, paid
free.
users.
Oh, I mean, I think it's way less than 1 million guys. I mean, I don't know, 300,000.
It's already at 400 now.
Is the question how many people have bought outright FSD?
Okay, I was thinking like paying maybe then subscribers. I mean, it's at 400, but I'm thinking more in terms of the cash flow generation inside of this business and product. I mean, we don't know how many people have bought versus subscribed today, right?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Meta, let me ask you that. What do you think is the current number of people subscribing? So let's say as of March 31st, which is when the free trial started. Okay, so right before the free trial started, how many people do you think were subscribing to FSD?
I would guess that 80 to 90% of that 400 number is paying because we haven't seen it fluctuate much. And people who subscribe are already half in, half out. So if they got convinced, they would probably buy it. And if they didn't get convinced, they'd probably stop subscribing.
Okay, so again, the question is, I just need one number.
80 to 90%.
How many? I need the number of people that were subscribing to FSD on March 31st.
320,000.
So I can't hear Meta, but
See,
I
I
did
don't
hear
think
you.
so. I don't think so because most of the people were had bought FSD, and I think that's what Grant raised his hand to say.
Sorry, that's what I was saying was the number of people who purchased it was 320,000.
Okay, so you're saying less than 100,000 people were subscribing to it, and I agree with that. So you're telling me that that's going to increase by more than 10x in the next 7 months, 8 months.
I was including people who would purchase it in that by the end of the year. Remember, if the uptake stays around 10 to 15% and they sell 1 million cars, however many they sell in the US, there's going to be some natural increase from 400 to 500 anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you want to solve I mean, it's not super complicated math, right? It's how many Teslas have been sold in the United States, how many of those have already bought FSD, meaning they don't need to subscribe because they already bought it, how many are currently subscribing, and then yeah, by year end, how many are on the roads and what portion of those people are
Just
subscribed.
FYI, we actually have breaking news right now. Tesla Scope posted the subscription price of Tesla FSD has now officially been reduced to $99 a month. So we now have, as we discussed here, the very topic, Tesla reduced the price to $99 a month.
I like it.
Yeah.
Well, I think that changes the calculus, right, of the math of how many are going to be subscribed by the end of the year.
Not if you already expected it.
True.
Yeah. This is very interesting. Very interesting. Do you expect, Reggie?
Sorry, I said I would. When I get back, I'm gonna check to see if my subscription will be $50.
Can't you check on the mobile phone, on the mobile app?
I bought the car for my wife, so I'm the co-owner of it, so I don't get the privilege to.
If you've added yourself as a driver, oh, I guess you don't. Okay, never mind.
Yeah.
What does it cost to buy it out right now? Did that go down too?
$12,000, but let's check on the website to see if that changed.
I mean, it just would be insane to buy it at this point if they haven't dropped that.
I like Tesla Scope's response to somebody. They said, "This will not increase uptake, mark my words." And Tesla Scope said, "We've personally spoken to 3 individuals who all simultaneously signed up the moments after we posted this." So obviously not 0, but I think that's funny. There's obviously a bunch of people that were waiting for this.
On the website, it's still $12,000 to purchase outright on a new vehicle.
So 10 years. Like, it's just, I mean, that's just ridiculous, but you know, whatever.
Meta, do you think Tesla will cut the price as well or no?
Given that they're allowing free FSD transfers, I don't think so. You can allow the purchase of FSD, and then even have a nominal fee of 1,000 or 2,000 to transfer between vehicles. And now you have a very different offering than subscription.
Habib?
I got a case for Wes.
Oh, I don't think Wes is here right now. So when he comes back, he can do that. Grant?
So I was just going to ask, so it's fully transferable now. So if you buy it, you have it forever. That's the understanding.
No, they just they resumed the transfer for new cars. It's like a one time. So I think in the agreement that you signed, at least this was true in the summer, and I think it's still appropriate now. You can transfer it one time to a new vehicle.
I'll just make the general comment that I think if I were a person that had spent like 12 or 15K on this 4 years ago, I'd be pretty frustrated by the continued pivots in the pricing and, product strategy here, right? Like,
Well, 4 years ago, the price was $6,000. I bought it at $7,000 3 years ago, and it went up to 15 and then back down to 12. So it has been pretty chaotic, but for those, if you are someone that has like a 4-year-old, 5-year-old, 6-year-old car, I think the transfer is actually pretty compelling, free transfer.
But that wasn't even a part. I mean, it's confusing. I think that they're likely confusing a lot of customers, but also possibly just, certainly pissing off some customers, certainly making some happy, but it would be good to have a pretty steady approach to how the pricing for this product is going to evolve instead of learning things. I mean, even literally on this call, we're finding out, oh, it just went down in half again. Maybe it'll go back up soon. I mean, and they've said it's going up, it's going down. They've done the opposite. It's just kind of, I think, frustrating to see.
Grant, do you want to bet Meta a coffee bet?
About what?
You said there's no way it's going to be $1 million, right? He said 1 to 1.2 million.
How many cars what's the forecast for the number of total Teslas that'll have been delivered inside of the United States by the end of this year? Is it like 5 million?
Inside the US?
Yeah.
It's more like 3.
They just produced their 6 millionth car overall. I
Yeah,
think
but
there's probably 1.9 million vehicles in the US, if I had to guess, by the
That's
end
wrong.
of the year.
That's
No?
wrong. No.
Okay.
They've already stated that there's 2 million eligible vehicles in North America.
And then so by the end of this year, do you think that's 3?
That would be my guess.
Yeah, I don't think there's, and then you got to back
But
out.
make sure you also have Canada in there.
Canada's eligible now?
Canada's
Right.
been eligible, and another country could become eligible.
Okay. Well, I don't know.
What country is that?
China.
Do you think China is going to be eligible by year end?
I wouldn't put the probability at 0.
Okay, but then inside of that 3 million number,
Wait,
let's
hold on,
say,
Grant. Yaman, are you willing to take a coffee bet that there's 0 chance that China has FSD of any kind by the end of the year?
Um,
Am I getting my first strike?
I didn't make a prediction first. I did not make a prediction. Yoda, what were we gonna say?
Don't do it.
Why not?
Obviously.
8-8.
Yeah, Chansu.
Yeah, so I believe Canada here led. There was no way that people in Canada would be able to afford, $200 per month US. That's like $420 Canadian dollars per month. So
That is incorrect.
There's so many people. I got 24 reminders that Teslas have the subscription price. Okay, and now I'm getting people telling me in the replies that the stock is reacting after hours, and I look it up, it's like 0.8%. What happened to this like long-term investor mentality that we're getting excited about a 0.8% increase after hours trading?
You're following the wrong people.
I'm not following anybody.
That's the point.
Chansu?
Hey, so do you guys think Tesla will do something special for those who bought FSD in full price on August 8th?
They should.
I think they've already done something special for everybody who bought FSD, right? Anybody who complained about having bought FSD and that their car was 5, 6 years old and it still doesn't have FSD had the opportunity to upgrade to a new car and move FSD. That complaint should no longer be valid.
Because they were willing to sell them another car. I mean, is that serious? Like, that's kind of insane. No.
Well,
like, buy a new car and the problem solved. You're welcome.
Well, the complaint was my car is getting old and I don't know if in the lifetime of this car I'll ever get FSD. So that complaint goes away.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I wouldn't have done it. I would never even done that, honestly. You know what you were signing for. And look at people like Grant. Like, most people think like Grant. They don't even appreciate what Tesla did for them.
I think for previous owners of FSD, people who bought the vehicles a long time ago, like for me, that was a difference maker in trying to buy or not buy. Free supercharging is another one of the things that they've done in the past. I don't think people appreciate all the different reasons why people buy. And free supercharging is one of those things. If they ever offered that again, I'm sure they would make a ton of sales.
Yeah. Grant, are you betting Meta or not? You guys are you're skirting, Grant. You're skirting.
No, I'm getting interrupted. I don't know what the exact terms of the bet are. We were going through the math of how many cars there are.
The bet is how many paid users of FSD by year end.
Are you going to count the 400,000 people that most of whom bought licenses over the last 5 or 6 or 7 or however long they've been selling this years?
Yeah, of course. Of course those will be counted.
I mean, I'll say certainly less than 1 million if that's an acceptable bet. I don't know. I'd say less than 800K. We don't know if we'll even get the data.
Less than 800K, you have a deal.
No. Oh my God.
Hey, Yaman, stop ruining my bets.
No, stop. No. You said more than 1 million.
He made a statement. He made a statement.
He's a newbie. I got to protect the newbies. All right.
Like Yaman is just wanting me to lose bets. That's what these coffee chats have turned into.
800,000 is too easy. 1 million is more palatable, I think.
That's right. I'm the cynic here. You should have some faith in Tesla. Like, come on, man. Do you even believe in this product's capability to change the world? Come on.
I believe you're a very strong-willed adult who can make decisions for yourself, and you don't need Yaman to protect you. So when you say the 800,000, I believe you do believe that, and so I want to empower you in your bet.
I mean, I'll take the bet. I'll just highlight that there's a chance we'll never know because the disclosure around usage and, who's a subscriber, who's, free versus paid, like we'll never know. I mean, I would want it to be paid users.
They will probably announce 1 million users. That's why I think 1 million is another good reason to kind of bet on. So I think you guys should take 1 million.
I want to make something clear that they're going to say 1 million the second there are, 1 million people using it for free.
So Grant, would you feel comfortable with shifting it to 1 million by the end of the first quarter? And if they don't announce it on the end of the first quarter, we call it a day. Or you could keep it at 800,000 at the end of Q4. If they don't announce it, we call it a day.
No, stop. I'm making executive order. I'm actually placing this bet now. And you guys are both agreeing to 1 million by year end.
Not agreed.
You are
agreeing.
It's how it works now.
You just decide what we all bet.
Exactly. Otherwise, we're not going to get a better one. You're ridiculous. Come on, you're the adult right now.
Grant, I think it's fair to say if you make a bet and the outcome of the bet cannot be determined, that it is a mulligan.
FSD users by more than 1 million by year end.
He said 800.
No.
I just want paid. Paid is what matters to me. I mean, like they can
Yeah,
make
paid.
free
If
to
it's just,
everybody.
can you
Yeah,
just
agreed. It has to be paid
Grant,
over
I think
800.
Grant, if you just shut your mouth for a second, I'll get you this bet. Just let me do my thing. Grant, what's your handle?
Grant Belden.
I stand in protest.
You
I've
said
heard
1 to 1.2 million.
Yes, and Grant said 800. So
All
a
right.
million sounds good.
So there you go. Exactly. Millions in the middle. Gosh, making a bet used to be so much easier in the good old days.
you're not even in the bet, Yaman. You're just like trying to get me to lose bets.
I just want more bets that we can track.
But the bets
All
should
right.
be based on what people conclude, not based on what you write.
All right. I'll make the bet with you. If you don't want to make the bet with Grant, I'll make the bet with you at a million. Okay. I didn't
810?
say I didn't say 800,000. You said million and two.
Well, that's
and
why
I'll
I'm
take
taking
less than
Grant's
1
bet
million.
because it's a better offer than yours.
He's not giving you an offer. I'm giving you a better offer. Do you want my bets or do you want the bet with the Grant?
I want the 800,000 bet with Grant.
You're not getting the 800,000. You have a million at the table. Oh my gosh! Stop! You're ruining coffee bets, man. Single-handedly ruining coffee bets.
The whole point of coffee bets was to get people to say and stand by the things they say. So I'm trying to get Grant to stand by what he said.
This is making me hate coffee bets, and that's incredible that you actually accomplished this. That's a high bar of deleting the bets. Oh.
I'm just gonna
Moving
like
on.
restate the numbers on the bet though. I mean, I'm good with
I
the
don't
bet.
care.
That's fine. That's
We're moving on. David Ross says, "So awesome! Tesla decreased FSD to $99 a month. I was paying $200, but it's a no-brainer at $99. If you have not tried it, this is the time and sign up. It's only going to get better. Great decision, Tesla. Thank you, Elon Musk." Let's get Bradford's take on it if he wants to come up, or Alex. And if not, Pedro can come up and we can talk about some Uber speculation. Fud News is here if he wants to come up and tell us about how worried he is on 0.8% increase in after hours. Yoda?
Yeah, just a quick math, I guess. I think just before the Q1 production delivery numbers, Tesla announced its 6 million vehicle, and obviously it's still producing and delivering more from that point on to the end of the year. But let's say if the global fleet is just sort of applicable for FSD at 5 million this at the end of the year. If FSD is pushed into China at 30% take rate of 5 million vehicles, would be 1.5 million.
What about Europe though?
Yeah, that's why I'm only using sort of 5 million as the base at the end of the year to remove kind of the vehicles in the Europe region.
Yeah, okay. I was just going to go back to the terms of the bet, but I'll forget it.
Don't worry, Grant. I took a screenshot of the bet that Yaman deleted, but we both know it was 800.
I'm going to block both of you. I'm just going to read AI papers to replace Meta. That's not fine. All right. Let's switch gears. Peggy, why do you think Tesla why do you think Tesla will acquire Uber?
Hello.
Go ahead.
Can you guys hear me nice and clear?
Yes.
Okay, great. No, thank you, Yaman, for inviting me to the space. This is actually my first space, so thank you for the invite. And pretty excited. So Okay, Tesla and Uber. Well, I made that post. I think last week or so. Not the intention that I think they will do it, but I just put it out there because, well, what I see is, well, first of all, if they want to acquire Uber today, it just doesn't make sense.
PJ, just
Yeah.
I need 3 sentences. Why Tesla? Just imagine you're an M&A analyst at Tesla, and Elon is going from a massive stressful time on the production line, and he's running onto the Optimus line, and you're walking with him for 5 minutes. I need 3 sentences why Tesla should acquire Uber. While you think about your 3 sentences, Bradford, what do you think about this $99 per month price drop?
I think it's awesome. Tesla's not committed to keep that price forever. There's also zero chance that Tesla will acquire Uber. To acquire Uber, it cost Tesla about $210 billion at a 30% premium. And Tesla doesn't need to pay $210 billion to learn all the lessons that Uber has learned. Now, certainly there might be some kind of partnerships or some kind of data. Tesla would probably love to get data from Uber or Lyft, or have some kind of partnership going on, but zero chance they pay $210 billion to acquire them.
Okay, Pedro, what are your 3 sentences?
Okay, no, personally, I don't think Tesla will be acquiring Uber. If anything, Lyft would be a much better company because it's only 8 billion. I mean, 160 billion for Uber right now is just ridiculous. But I don't. Well, maybe in the future, once Tesla has its own robo taxi network and all that, and maybe here's the thing: the motive of me putting that post was not because I think Tesla's going to buy out Uber. The idea is that Uber is getting really cozy and close to Tesla. Like, they're allowing them to promote their products on their network. They're letting them, buy. They're pretty much advertising for them in a way. And I think, right, it's not based on any articles or any facts or anything. It's just some gut feeling that I got going on. Uber wants them. Uber wants Tesla to buy them out. Doesn't mean that they are, but that was the motive between that. That was the motive for that post. Do I think Tesla's gonna buy out Uber? Well, at the moment of 160 billion market cap, hell no. There's no way. But maybe in the future. Maybe
You
when
literally said your post was Tesla prediction.
Yeah, I
Tesla
know,
will
I know.
acquire, and now you're saying no way. Okay, we're gonna switch to $99 a month discussion. Omar, what do you think about this price cut?
Hey, it's a great day. I'm super excited to see that they've dropped the subscription price to $99 a month. This makes it a lot more attainable. This really makes it so you have no excuse not to subscribe to it. Mentally, it sounds a lot better. Okay, an extra $100 a month versus, $200 a month. The car payments, the lease payments in some cases are only like 300 something dollars a month. So it's a significant add-on to the cost. This is more palatable. They've also dropped down for referrals. You can now get 3 months of FSD for just 6,000 credits. So you refer one person to buy a Tesla every quarter. If you can do that, just convince one person to buy a Tesla every quarter, and they'll let you use FSD for free. So I think it's a great move. Obviously, they're now going to have twice as many users to generate the same subscription revenue. But the focus really needs to exclusively be on getting people addicted to FSD. The earnings are kind of, okay, they're nice, but really it's just about getting people addicted. You get them addicted, you'll be able to make a lot more money from them. You'll be able to sell them cars, you'll be able to sell them FSD. They won't buy any other EV or any other car because they'll be addicted to FSD. And even the subscription revenue or the purchase in full revenue really pales in compared to when it's autonomous and you're just taking a percentage of the revenue. So let's not focus too much on necessarily raising the price too high to the point where it makes it prohibitive. Let's get this to mass market pricing, and let's get it to a place where everyone can subscribe. And I think it's great they did that. They did it before the free trial ends. I think we're going to see a surprising conversion rate after this trial's over.
Do you know what the price is for EAP owners?
Yeah, it's still showing up as $99 for them. It should be $42 for them, in my opinion.
Omar, can you hear Meta?
Yeah, he said, do you know why the enhanced autopilot users haven't seen their price change? It should go down to $49 to them, but it's still $99. So, I mean, that's really attractive because a lot of people bought enhanced autopilot, and it's a good halfway if you don't want to spend the 12,000. So, if you have enhanced autopilot, which many people do, you can subscribe for just $49 a month, which is like, come on.
Is
So,
When you
that
say
such a
it should,
good
hold on,
deal.
sorry, Omar, when you say it should go down to 49, is that based on something you read from Tesla or is that speculation?
Traditionally, the subscription price for people who have enhanced autopilot has been half of what it is for people who don't. So before it was $199 if you don't have enhanced autopilot, but only $99 a month if you do. So, just applying the logic forward, you'd expect it to go down to $49.
What if it only goes down
Okay.
to 69?
Yeah, Meta, if it goes down to 49, then you're obviously going to win that bet.
Well, it wasn't obvious when we started making the bet. The news broke while we were making the bet. I think that's fair.
Well, we don't yet have any news around 49. Omar is saying it should go down.
All
So,
right,
40.
well,
if it goes down, then obviously take rate will be higher than if it just stays at 99.
I proposed the bet to Grant. If you wish to accept it, just reply agreed. If you don't, don't. But the bet I
No.
put was under 800, Grant wins, over 1 million, I win.
No. Grant, don't accept it. That's ridiculous. All right, let's see. Who's Aaron? Go ahead.
Hey, Yaman, can you hear me?
Eli, go ahead.
Oh.
Yeah, just jumping in to join the conversation. This is really exciting to see Tesla has lowered the price to $99. I think we're going to see in the initial quarter a pretty good increase in adoption of subscription FSD. But I think more importantly, over the next year, we are going to see word of mouth really increase. Not only is it a lot more affordable for an individual, but it's a lot easier to sell your friend to like, dude, try this out. It's only 99 bucks. It's not a big deal. There's something like the psychological price points of things really matter a lot. And people will give the example that someone will easily spend $200 a month on coffee. I would easily spend $200 a month on coffee, but I would have a hard time, even myself, paying $200 a month for an FSD subscription, which is stupid, but humans are irrational sometimes. So I'm stoked about this change.
Yoda.
Yeah, question for Omar. Do you think from $99 to $199, with that $100 gap there, do you think the take rate is linear or exponential?
Well, I think you're going to see that the price elasticity is strong. $199, which is $2,400 a year, was pretty expensive even for people who wanted to use it. At $1,200 a year, it's still pretty expensive, but it's it's swallowable. So I would like to see them introduce on-demand pricing really and just activate it for free for everybody. But this is going to go a long way to making it more affordable today.
Yeah, agreed.
I think if we didn't have the problem of so many existing owners having already purchased it for such large costs, I think there'd be probably an opportunity to lower this even further and take TAM to, well over above 50%. But I think Tesla's doing a good job, I think, at least with this price adjustment and not completely making existing owners feel burned. That said, I do hope they offer a transfer option why these prices are so low, especially for folks who paid 12 or 15K for the feature.
No hands mode. Which means just wait until like 2 seconds until after somebody's done. Okay. Grant, then Chansu, and then jump in.
Yeah, I think that the pricing decisions have been unfortunate, and I can understand how some people would be irritated. And then I think with regard to the price cuts, the other thing that'll just be interesting to see is how many people are open to this technology today. I mean, I think there's definitely a lot of people excited about it. I'm sure most of the people in this group, are eager to use it if they're not already. But I just don't know if, half of those vehicles that have been delivered in North America have been delivered to people that are like, oh yeah, I will definitely try this. Or if there's just a lot of folks out there that are like, no, that scares the shit out of me. I really don't know. It'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, the other interesting impact of this is that it makes buying in full look like a much worse deal by comparison. So almost nobody's going to buy in full, which is, I think, what they want. I think they believe they can ultimately make more money if people subscribe.
No hassle.
Do you guys think Tesla will be sort of start to report the total numbers of subscribers starting this quarter?
I think once they cross 1 million, probably more likely. Omar, do you think you can transfer FSD from one vehicle to another might be here to stay and probably just have a transfer fee of some kind?
Well, the supposed one-time FSD transfer has now happened 3 times, including this quarter. So I would say, yeah, just make it permanent. With the transfer, the $12,000 for FSD actually starts to look like a good deal. Because, for me, I bought it for $7,000. I used it for 3 years on my Model 3 Performance. I then transferred it to my Model S long range. Now I get to continue to use that. They can raise or lower the pricing or whatever the hell. It's not really my problem. I don't have to worry about them charging my credit card. And when I'm done paying for my car, like I am with my Model S, then I don't have to pay anything for FSD. It's just paid for. So if they added the transfer option, it would make it, I think, look much more compelling. Right now, it's kind of, obviously looking like a much worse deal relative to the subscription.
Dallas.
I kind of see this as a stereotypical like Tesla shoot from the hip move. Definitely something I've been looking forward to, and actually in my case is what's getting me to actually become a subscriber after this trial. So I'd say it's definitely worked on me, and 99 was the threshold that I was waiting for. But pertaining to the people who paid, some paid up to 15, which, in effort of making things right, I guess, is that something you're supposed to do? Because you could look at it like some people bought Model Ys at the peak of the pandemic for like $70,000. I mean, timing is everything. You're never going to get perfect timing. Someone's always going to be screwed up in the end. But I don't know, maybe you give them a lifetime. I guess lifetime would be too valuable if Robotaxi ends up working out. So I kind of stand on the side of give the people who bought it a one-time transfer whenever they decide to do it, not just in a timed window of a transfer. Because I think it makes people that paid a bunch of money for it feel, okay, good. I can use this car and have FSD, and then the next new Tesla I buy will have it as well. That's kind of where I stand on it.
Good point. I just wanted to make another point. So Tesla lowering FSD subscription price to $99 per month, that just puts all the other automakers' subscription prices and look ridiculously high.
Yeah. Okay. Just one quick announcement. We have a number of people requesting to speak. Just hold tight, everybody. If you're not accepted and you're waiting in limbo, hold tight. I'm trying to get through people. And also, I'm thinking about doing like a half hour either before or after these spaces, or maybe on a weekend, just for new speakers only. We might do a half hour just for new speakers on the space, maybe over a weekend or something, to kind of get trained with the rules and all that. Okay, Jimmy.
Hey, what do you guys think about just switching over to account-bound FSD? So let's just say I own 5
Before we
Teslas.
switch, we have 3 speakers that can get a chance to talk on the current topic. David Ross.
Hey, so I posted. You already announced what I posted, and obviously I think this is awesome. Going to 99, I was paying 200. I'm your typical buyer. I actually bought my Tesla in September, got the 3-month trial at the time for FSD. That's actually what convinced me. I was on 11.3.6, I think, is what I started out with. Obviously, it's gotten vastly better since then. So I think one would be that if they do 3-month trials, they'll hook a lot of people. That's what hooked me. I was on the fence a month in, but as I used it more and more, I couldn't live without it. At 200, though, I still had feelings of dropping it. At 99, I'll keep it forever now. And that's a great price. So the other thing I think is the customer base has changed, right? So we're looking at $35,000 Teslas. I've posted this a few times online. And I think they have to do this lower price for that customer base. No longer are we just selling S's and X's and Cybertrucks. I mean, most of the vehicles are the Ys and the 3s. And then the last thing I'd just like to say is that, you know, when they come out with the Robo taxi, I think there can be 2 different pricing levels, right? If you want to commercially use your car, you charge a different level than you're charging the 99. That's my input.
Thank you, David. Conservative. Conservative. Princip in Italia.
Hey, thanks, Herman. Hey, hi, Omar. Hi, everyone. So yeah, I'm so excited. As you see my username, I've been the FSD subscriber for a long time. I've been investing like $100 extra each month. So this is like, I'm really excited. I just finished my work. So this is like a really happy news. I always had this thing, right? With Model 3 and Model Y, on an average, switching between 27K to 37K. After tax credit, I always thought 200K is like 33% of their monthly payment, which won't work. So getting it back to 99 is a huge thing for all of us. So I really like it. Only question that I had is nobody can answer, but is this a temporary thing? I know we cannot subscribe for 6 months in a row or 3 months in a row. When the base reaches, like when the number of new customers reaches maybe like 1 million or thousands, whatever it is, are they going to increase it back to 150 or 200? Just thinking out loud here.
I mean, I think they can always raise the price if it proves its worth. Right now, we want to get people hooked. As it gets better, as people like it so much that they can stomach a price increase, you can always sort of creep the price up over time, like Netflix and other people do. I've been saying for some time, you know, people have been talking about FSD pricing, and I said, look, they're adopting a restrictive pricing scheme because they don't want people to sign up early. Once it gets good enough that they actually want people to use it, they can turn on that faucet, they can change the pricing, they can send out a free trial. And that's exactly what they're doing right now. So if they want to drive the FSD adoption rate to where they want it, they have a lot of tools in their toolbox to do that. And we're seeing them start to flex that muscle now.
Yeah, it's pretty important to keep in mind that the pricing is a good way to filter away folks who are casual users versus avid users.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think the path is find the right price to get users. And then once you have the users, get enough of them at the right price to get the miles you need, which again, it's that 6 billion mile part. Once you have enough of those miles, you solve driving. And once that happens, the driver becomes the passenger, and there's 99 ways to make money from them.
All right. This space is sponsored by my patrons. If you'd like to support the space, the link is at the top of your screens. Jonathan.
Yeah, Meta and Omar, how much of this pricing change do you think Tesla is aiming at just for a data standpoint? Obviously, on 8.8, they have the autonomous vehicle being released. Do you think that this pricing could also be aimed at getting as much data as possible to push new updates faster towards that release? Or do you think it's more just to get more users?
I mean, I think the primary goal is to drive up the conversion rate from the trial. I think that obviously having more users, you get more feedback. So that's always a positive as well. But I think the primary thing is just trying to pull off an impressive conversion from the free trial to the subscription.
All right, I see Bradford in the audience. If you would like to come up, we have a question for him on CATL's new Megapack competitor announcements. Until then, let's see who didn't get a chance to speak on the board on FSD's price drop. All right, Yodo, looks like you're going to be right. 1.2, 1.3 million by year end.
Yeah, I'm not sure if Omar will get this Jay-Z reference just because of the music genre, but I think Elon is saying 99 problems, but the FSD pricing ain't one.
Bradford, how are you?
Doing good. Recap me on the news.
Yeah, CATL unveiled Tesla Megapack competitor claims zero degradation and more capacity. I'm going to pin this at the top of our screens. Peter, thank you. It's an electric article. Omar, did you see this?
Sorry, I was writing a tweet. No, I didn't see that yet.
Okay.
I mean, there's so much
Bradford, have you seen
competition
this?
to the Megapack. It's not a new thing. Like, there's a lot of
Okay.
people that make grid storage.
Just 1 second. Can you tell Bradford how to do mute button on the wheel and still have his thing muted?
Yeah, so unmute yourself.
I'm muted.
Unmute yourself on your phone. Then on your Tesla, you should see the call interface, and it should say like scroll wheel left to mute and unmute. So you can use your scroll wheel and mute and unmute on the car, and then that filters the audio coming to the space.
That's what I'm doing. Is it not working?
No,
I don't know. Try and mute yourself. Let's see.
I think it's working, Iman.
Yeah. So
yeah, seems good.
Yeah. So
You have to watch for the
Yaman,
purple lines.
I've been
instead of
driving
the-
for the last 2.5 hours. Could you kind of recap us on the facts that are shared in the article, and then I'll comment.
Well, we didn't talk about this article, but the article says, let's see. CATL has unveiled Tenor, a new large-scale energy storage system to compete with Tesla Megapack. This system has almost twice the energy capacity of the Megapack, and CATL claims zero degradation after 5 years. The Megapack is the poster boy of large-scale energy storage. The energy storage device has been used in most of the world's largest energy storage projects, and it's expanding fast. Now it is about to get some serious competition from a partner, CATL. CATL is the world's largest battery cell manufacturer and Tesla's biggest supplier. The massive Chinese company unveiled today Tenor, a massive new energy storage device featuring all-around safety, 5 years zero degradation, and a robust 6.25 megawatt-hour capacity. Tenor will accelerate the large-scale adoption of new energy storage technologies as well as the high-quality advancement of the sector. 6.25 megawatt hours is the seemingly small form factor is truly impressive. In comparison, Tesla Megapack has a 3.9 megawatt hour energy capacity. However, Tesla's Megapack includes the inverter, which doesn't seem to be the case for CATL's Tenor, according to this image. Anyway, the energy capacity is not the most impressive thing about Tenor. CATL claims zero battery degradation after 5 years. While preventing the degradation of capacity over the first 5 years of use is a significant advancement in increasing the lifespan of batteries, the zero degradation of power is also important for energy storage power plants aiming to meet the requirements of new electric power systems, etc., etc. Yeah, Meta, why did you say it's working? I don't see it muted at all. Can you not hear Bradford?
No. So you can't hear Bradford when he mutes?
Yeah, I'm muting on my car, so
Right.
I'm unmuting on my phone.
Bradford, 1 second. So Yaman, look for the purple lines. When he presses the mute button, the purple lines will disappear.
Y'all are so nice with your tech support.
I'm not seeing any sort of purple lines.
So here's what I'm wondering about the article. Don't worry about it, Yaman. It's working. Okay. So what's the form factor if it's got twice the energy storage with no degradation? Is this LFP? And then like how big is it? Like a semi trailer? I don't think maybe it would fit in the form factor of a semi trailer. It wouldn't fit in the form factor of a train, of a freight container that goes in a port. It sounds to me like it might be some kind of LFP if there's no degradation, but then that has to take up a larger space. I texted Jordan Giesecke about this, so hopefully he can join soon. What we do know is that CATL, LG, BYD are competing in this space. So yeah, I'm curious to learn more. I do think it's a very large market, so I'm not really concerned just yet. I'm curious where they come in on pricing, and I'm guessing they're going to have trouble making it in the U.S. So I think Megapack will still do fine in the U.S., but it might be a little more challenged elsewhere.
I mean, CATL has been in the stationary storage business before, as are BYD and other companies. So, this
Yeah,
may be like
hold
an
on 1
updated.
second. Hold on, everybody. Meta, are you not hearing Bradford's background noise? Meta?
I believe
Okay,
that was
there we go.
Omar's
Now
background
he's
noise.
muted. No, that is Bradford. All right. Omar, then Jordan.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I'm pretty sure that CATL and BYD and many other companies have been in the stationary storage business for a while. So it's not really new that there's other companies that do what the Megapack does. But, I think Tesla obviously doesn't even make the cells that go into the Megapack. They said they want to eventually, but I think they're using LFP from somebody, possibly even from CATL. And I think what really differentiates them is their software. So you can see these battery makers like BYD and CATL making their own utility storage projects. But what Tesla's really good at is connecting a bunch of megapacks together, making them act like one, shipping technologies like auto bidder and things like that make the experience sort of a lot easier for the operator, a lot easier to monetize, and a lot easier to use.
Jordan, welcome. What do you?
You cut out. Hopefully, can you guys hear me? Because people are cutting out when I'm listening to them.
Yeah, what do you think about the Seattle announcement?
I just saw Bradford sent me a message and said told me what you guys were talking about, and I was like, oh yeah, that is an interesting topic. So, do you want to know about the why it can not degrade for 5 years? I don't know if anybody can you hear me?
Yeah, we can
We
hear
can hear
you.
you.
We don't have that detail.
Okay, all right. So there's two things that I think would be interesting to cover. First is that 5 year, why it doesn't degrade for 5 years. Now, what they do is they take an electrolyte additive that contains a whole bunch of extra lithium, and it releases that lithium over time. Now, what that does is, yeah, you don't have any degradation for 5 years, but it does add extra cost to those batteries. And it does reduce the energy density of those batteries because you're replacing some of the active material in the cathode with this sorry, it's not an electrolyte additive, it's a cathode additive. So yeah, it takes up it makes it less energy dense, more expensive, but it lasts a lot longer. So for energy storage, it's perfect because it gives you more dollars per kilowatt hour per cycle. Even though initial cost is higher, you get a lot more life out of it, which is good for energy storage. And in terms of CATL making something like this, I imagine because Tesla uses their cells, that maybe at some point Tesla will get those cells as well. Or this could be one of those things in the battery field where actually CATL is just trying to get people's attention, and it's a typical LFP battery cell might actually be more commercially viable. They're just showing off their technology prowess.
Meta.
What else?
Yeah, I was going to ask Jordan, how does this compare to when other automakers and storage makers often will have like say 102 kilowatts and advertise it as 100 kilowatts and then claim, look, it didn't degrade because it's still 100 kilowatts at the end of like a certain period of time?
Um, I
Okay,
would have to think.
while Jordan
Go
while
ahead.
Jordan thinks, I want to kind of just mention one thing. I remember previous conversations, and Jordan is, he has a YouTube channel. He produces very thoughtful, organized, research content on the topic. Okay. Now, spaces can be more kind of like, back and forth and noisy and everything. So we're going to slow down the conversation a lot. And we're going to think about this. So hands only. And Jordan, take as much time as you want to think about your answers. And if you don't feel comfortable giving an answer, just say, I need to think more about this. And then we can revisit always. Okay.
Okay, I appreciate that. All right, so with regards to that point, my initial response is that basically the best way to address that is to look at how much energy it delivers over time and how much you're paying for that. So there's anybody that puts a product on the market, you can fudge the numbers this way or that. So it really comes down to Tesla's going to have to take one of these batteries and test it and see how it compares to a typical LFP battery. But your point is a really good one. It's like, is this just kind of a gimmick? It might be. And that's kind of what I was saying, that it sounds cool, but what's the extra cost and what's the commercial reality of it?
Right. At a basic physics level or chemistry level, you don't get anything for free, right? You can never guarantee that you're not going to have degradation, is my understanding.
Bingo. This does still have degradation, but what it does, it's like there's like a chemical that's breaking down in that battery and releasing lithium over time. But in order to do that, they had to take out some of the active cathode material and replace it with this material. So that's right. There's nothing is for free.
Great. Machine, I believe, raising his hand.
Yeah, one other thing they could be doing, I know Jeff Don has shown research where, if you only discharge and charge the battery around a 50% state of charge, then the cycle life of the battery can extend for a really long time. And so I'm not saying they're doing this, but they might be making claims around something where their discharge amount is very small to say it'll last for a long period of time. That's just one other way they could caveat it. But I think, it's worth getting back to the big picture. And the big picture is CATL is a real battery cell maker. CATL makes the battery cells for the Megapack currently. And there's no reason to think that CATL couldn't make their own Megapack. They're quite well versed in this area. And I disagree with Omar's assertion that Tesla really is going to stand out on the software side. Megapack control software is not some super fancy thing. This is not something that can't be copied or emulated by other companies.
Are you okay? We will let you. We don't want to interrupt your skydiving experience. Okay, so let's go to Bradford.
My question for Jordan is, I'm guessing maybe this could fit in the form factor of a full semi trailer, but I'm guessing this would not transport on trains, or it'd be extremely heavy if this thing is 8 megawatt hours. What do you think about like the size and the weight of this?
Well, Tesla specifically puts little gaps in within the Megapack as like fire breaks. So yeah, this would be very heavy. I don't know. This is the first I've seen this article, so I'd have to look into it and look into all the details of that. So I think it's a good point, but I don't know the answer to that.
Meta.
Jordan, do you know for Megapacks and battery storage that's outside usually versus vehicles, which are generally going to spend a lot of their time indoors and there's specific hours outdoors, is there different considerations for the way those batteries are made and the way the BMS has to perform?
I would say the answer is yes. As far as the specific details of like, you know, how each battery pack has to be designed for those specific use cases, or how the cell has to be designed for those specific use cases, I don't know. I would say the battery that goes in the vehicle would have to be much more rugged and probably costs more on a per kilowatt hour basis because it's more rugged. And when I mean rugged, I mean in terms of mechanical vibration, things like that.
Peter.
Question for Jordan. Well, this seems to be like a really nice package that they're offering. Do you think that this will kind of cut into the Megapack revenue profits that we were all hoping for from Tesla anytime soon? And then for Yaman, can you please ban machine from saying discharge and last very long time in one sentence?
Of course,
Well,
I can always.
I was
Yep.
wait.
Your band. Sorry, your band. Jordan.
Okay, in terms of Megapack profits, to me it seems like the primary challenge for Tesla at the moment. I don't know what's holding up their ramping Lathrop, but I do know that there's a whole lot of interconnect queues for deploying these packs, and there's an enormous amount of demand for these battery packs, and I don't know what Tesla's specific bottleneck is, but there's so much demand out there that I don't see that Tesla or CATL launching something like this is going to eat into Tesla's business, because right now the demand is pretty much, for all intents and purposes, infinite. I know some people are going to quibble with that term, but there's just so much demand, it may as well be infinite for the time being. That'll.
Bradford, and now we have Eklavya Singh, who on his profile says building big batteries at Tesla. So Bradford, go ahead. Oh, just disappeared. Okay, Bradford.
Yeah, I just want to back up what Machine said. There's no supercomputer in the Megapack. I think Tesla does a very good job with software, and it is top notch, but it's not no supercomputer required for this.
Are you saying that with evidence, Bradford, or are you guessing?
No, I know.
And are we talking about, to clarify that point, if we're talking about the software control within the BMS in the Megapack, I would agree that it's something a lot of companies can do, but was Omar's point about the broader software control for selling that energy into the market? Are we talking about two different things?
My main point, sorry, it was me, not Omar, but my main point was there is a BMS, per my understanding, to balance the cells that are being charged. There is a fast rate of pull of electrons out and depositing electrons in, and how you manage that across all the cells is equivalent to what's called a bin packing problem in computer science. And that is it's a notoriously hard problem. Many companies have tried to solve it, and it takes real software chops to solve it properly. I'm not saying other companies can't come up with good solutions, but to say that that's not a real advantage, I think is trivializing the problem.
Yeah, I would say this is a problem of degree, because like for instance, an LFP battery pack is more difficult to manage for these grid storage applications because it's much more difficult to assess the state of charge. If you have a really good hardware and software system, you can extract more revenue out of that Megapack system. So I don't know how much that plays a role for Tesla versus other companies. That is, everybody has a BMS, but the quality of each BMS, there's likely to be a difference there.
And then there's also the IoT, right, of actually knowing when to put stuff on the grid and when not to put it on the grid.
Yeah, and that's that other separate problem. How do you sell this into the market and predict revenue, et cetera?
Machine.
Determining when to put in the market is a problem. It's something Tesla can solve. It's something other companies can create control software to solve. Again, it's not to say it's not somewhat challenging, but it's not a moat for Tesla. Tesla's not going to have a moat for Megapack. They're going to have a competitive product and have reasonable margins.
I guess the thing that I focus on when I hear about something like this, CATL offering a product onto the market, as far as I'm aware, they don't do anything with project development. What they do is the cell manufacturing, battery pack manufacturing, and to a certain extent, system integration, but the actual project development, I don't know if they do that. At least the table that I'm looking at here, which is from Rice.Energy from a couple years ago, CATL didn't offer a one-stop shop, whereas Tesla is the only company that I'm aware of that does everything from all the way across all the different steps that need to take place in order to deliver a project.
Meta.
If we can change topics, did you see the Cybertruck breakdown from Sandy Monroe? And I'm curious what you make of the half-filled structural pack and the fact that it's modules instead of structural.
Well, I wouldn't call it modules. I think I forget what the guy's name was there, but I think he described it accurately, which it wasn't cell to module to pack. It was still cell to pack. It's just they had it divided up differently. And that may be because possibly the Cybertruck requires extra durability for the bottom of it because they expect it to be used in harsh environments. If you notice, the Model Y still had those spacers in between each set of cells, but the spacers were shorter and they didn't have like metal caps on the top. So this might be something that's just for the Cybertruck to make sure that it can handle, hitting a giant rock and potentially puncturing the bottom of that and not hitting the cells.
And the half full?
I think that's for venting. At least I think you had Antonio here the other day and he said the same thing. But if you look at the pictures of where they pulled that pack out of the bottom of the vehicle, there also seems to be there's spacers between the pack and the seats. And we don't know how much thicker they can make that pack and still have it fit under the vehicle. So to me, it seems like, at some point, it looks to me like there might be enough space to add another layer of cells. And it seems like there's potentially an excessive amount of space for venting. And as I said, that could be just for in case they hit a rock or something like that. So, you could put 2 layers of cells in there, but wouldn't it just be easier and safer to put those battery cells in the bed? So I think that's why they did that.
Sawyer.
Hey, Jordan, thanks for the insight. I was hoping to get your insights on, I know there's been some speculation in the community about, that extra space in the Cybertruck pack, and could it be potentially that Tesla would use longer cells like, 46 120s? And I know you've shared some brief thoughts on this, but I would love to get a more detailed insight in this space. Thanks.
I definitely think it's an option, but it's not as simple as just making the cell longer because that actually changes the performance of the cell. And this might be the reason why Tesla specifically chose that 80 millimeter form factor and not something longer. Because Jeff Don just released a paper recently within the past month showing that the electrolyte actually gets pumped throughout the battery cell as the battery cell is charging and discharging. And the longer you make that cell, the greater the difference in the concentration gradient of the electrolyte and the different it moves around that cell. So basically, the longer you make that cell, the more degradation you might see over time, or the more degradation you will see over time. So 80 millimeter might be the sweet spot for that form factor. Now, in terms of, all right, let's say they're willing to accept that extra degradation. Do I think Tesla would manufacture longer cells in-house? No, I don't think they would, because it's why deal with multiple different form factors? Why not make those battery cells as interchangeable as possible? There might be an argument for it in the future. Let's say we have higher degrees of specificity throughout their product range over time, they might go, okay, it might make sense to release another size of battery cell for this specific range of applications, and we can share it across the the semi, the Cybertruck, etc. But I don't think that's going to happen in the next 2 to 3 years. So I would say the short answer is, in the short term, I don't see Tesla using anything other than the 4680. And the long term, it might prove to be useful.
Yeah, I had the same question as Sawyer. Rivian, they said they're going to use 4695s for their R2 and R3 platform vehicles. So I don't know who's making those 4695s.
Oh, well, the thing is, you can actually just take the machine that makes the 4680 battery cells, and I think you can adjust the settings on that machine to get a deeper draw out of that cell can. So it's not like it's something very difficult. It's just, for me, it would just reduce the applicability of those. They can't just put those cells wherever they want. It would limit to what vehicles they could put those cells in if they made 2 different sizes. So yeah, technically, I don't think it's difficult.
Machine than Yoda.
Pass.
Yeah, and I would also say that I think it's kind of a crutch to use that longer cell. I think potentially another reason why Tesla chose that form factor is that they expect to hit the energy density increases that they mentioned on battery day. So why use, they could start with a 4680 cell and just increase the energy density of that cell over time, rather than going with an oversized cell to compensate for the current state of the technology.
Yoda.
Yeah, sorry to bring it back to FSD $99 monthly.
Before we do that, I have a
Yeah,
follow-up question on
Okay, go ahead.
Megapacks. So Jordan, a couple of people in the replies asked about order bidder, if order bidder would be a differentiating factor. I mean, I'm sure Meta and Machine, Omar, or others can speak to this too, but let's get Jordan's views first. Do you think Tesla's order bidder could be a differentiating factor against its CATL new products?
That's not something I follow closely. Like I have a grasp of what's going on with the BMS and that side of things, but in terms of auto bidder, I would say Omar is a better person to answer that question.
Okay, I think Omar might be having some connection issues. Machine, do you have any thoughts on that? People are asking if order bidder could be a differentiating factor for Tesla's Megapacks versus CATL products.
Short term, yes. Long term, no. Keep in mind, Tesla's even tried to recruit me to work on this software, and that is a damning effect if you think there's going to be a moat.
Yeah, there's a company called Fluence that sells this kind of stuff. They have a solution. It's possible that if CATL tries to sell into the US or Europe, they might have to sell them what I might call naked because of national security concerns. In that case, that might get messy for CATL. Tesla may have to do the same to sell Megapack in China. They might have to sell them naked.
Thank you. Yoda, you want to switch the topic to FSD?
Yeah, I just wanted to get Sawyer's thoughts on the implication of halving the price to legacy auto who are looking to potentially create their own full self-driving solution, kind of that make or buy decision, because their financial projections of sort of making money on kind of the levels of 199 has just been cut in half. And so how does that imply, what is the implication of that to them potentially using FSD?
Did you say that was a question for me at the beginning? I didn't hear that part.
Yeah, for you.
Okay. Okay. Well, at least for the response of what will be to the $99 price, I'll tell you right now, my DMs are filled since that tweet went out, the post went out about the price dropping and people subscribing. And I ran a poll a couple weeks ago asking, what people thought the FSD monthly price should be, and I had tiers of 199, over 199, 150, and then 99, and about 33,000 people voted, and 75% of those chose $99. And I think a lot of people just assumed, well, of course, people are just going to choose the cheapest option on the poll. That makes sense. So I ran another poll last night and I asked the same question, but I added a cheaper option under 99, and still 99 won. So I think a lot of people felt like 99 was a sweet spot for value for Tesla in terms of revenue, but also value for the customer and what they get with the current capabilities of the FSD system. In terms of the impact with like legacy automakers, I think like Ford Blue Cruise. I always try to. I accidentally name it Blue's Clues a lot. Blue Cruise. I think it's like $75 a month right now, and it doesn't have anywhere near the capabilities of FSD. So I don't know what the take rate is on the Blue Cruise, but I suspect at minimum, like the take rate on the new FSD subscription will increase 3 to 4x at least, I would think. Because I think a lot of people view as 199 too much for them, but I think $100 is a lot more attainable for a lot more people.
I look at it from the perspective of, all right, how much have most people paid for the FSD at one time, and what would that be amortized over time? So like if you paid 12,000, that's like 10 years, $100 a month. So to me, that seems fair. $100 seems about right compared to the outright price people were paying with the vehicle like I did.
Yeah, and it is likely that, it won't stay at 99 forever. As the system gets better, they'll likely increase the price again. But I think they want to just bring a lot of people in because most people have never tried it before. They don't know how good it's gotten, especially since FSD 12. So I think this is really just about exposing as many people as possible to this system and opening people's eyes to the potential here, especially as we
Oh,
roll into August for the new robotaxi unveiling.
absolutely. And it's a great data collection opportunity. People are paying Tesla to train the system so we can make money off of it. So I'm happy about it overall.
Yeah, and that's a good point because now that Tesla is no longer compute constrained, they can actually take advantage of as much data probably as they can get, whereas before they couldn't necessarily do that.
Yeah, feed the beast. And it's like Elon said the other day that, yeah, they're going to transformers. There's one of the first things they're going to run into, and then compute. And the next horizon after that, where they start running into limits, is data. So, they're firing on all 8 cylinders or all electrons. Not sure what the best analogy is here now.
Meta, do you agree with everything said?
Yeah, I agree with what Machine said.
Machine didn't say anything.
Oh, I thought you were referring to the earlier question about the auto bidder.
Oh, I see. No. So there's a question in the live chat. Drew asks, with FSD at $99 a month, how soon do we hit 2 billion miles? Sawyer, what do you think? Meta?
I think we will probably continue to see the current rate, so maybe 2 to 3 months.
Yoda, what do you think? 2 billion and then 6 billion, I guess, is the next milestone that people will be watching for because Elon mentioned 6 billion miles needed for regulatory approval, worldwide regulatory approval back in 2016 when he wrote the part of
Yeah, I was asking my friend Fud News, and I think he said that it would take about 24 months, or sorry, 24 months.
Are you guys on a first name basis now? You're calling just FUD?
Oh, I'm sorry. Actually, FUD News said 24 years because the first billion took 4. So it's actually 24 years, yeah.
Well, he's in the audience if he wants to come up and kind of defend his prediction.
Well, didn't they hit 500 million miles in about December? Let me pull up the chart.
Yeah, in the last 120 days, they added 500 million miles. And I suspect next month they'll hit 2 billion because you got 2 million people who just got the free trial. And then they just reduced the FSD monthly price by 50%. So I think they'll get to 2 billion in no time.
I agree.
All right,
That's
so
what I was thinking.
All right. So we have FUD News on the speaker board. Okay. Tesla bears are an endangered species. So I need to protect the endangered species. Okay. So FUD News, would you like to, did you actually say 24 years?
I'm not sure where he got the 24 years. I think I was referring to 20 years for like full autonomy. I don't remember anything. I mean, 24 is very specific, so it might be months or something. So I'm not sure if he's confused or I'm confused. Maybe I said something.
So let's do this. First of all, I want to congratulate you for stepping up in a room of 600, 700 Tesla bulls for coming up, and you are a true bear who is actually betting against the company. This is not the same thing as investors who are, concerned about this or that. You're actually betting against the company, so that makes it a true bear. Okay, so let's kind of go back to the drawing board. When do you think we're going to get to 2 billion miles?
I haven't actually looked at it, but I assume it must be much faster than before. So if you have 400,000 beta testers at 100 miles a day, maybe that's 40 million miles, so 25 days, so maybe next month.
Okay, so you agree with
that's
Sawyer.
reasonable. Yeah.
And what do you think will be the impact on the stock price of this halving of the subscription price?
I think I looked at the math and it didn't seem to add up to me. I think if you look at, because they said that they were going to recognize $900 million in FSD revenue, that was in the past. And according to, let's say, if you have 2 million US users at the assumed 25% take rate, and you have $1,200 a month, so you have 1,200 times 500,000 users. That gets us to 600 million. So based off that, I think we're actually at a lower level than before. The previous level was 900 million. So that's kind of concerning to me, looking at the numbers. Obviously, to get break even, you need 37.5% take rate, according to what I see. Of course, there's like data, you can collect data and stuff, but that's according to the numbers I calculated.
Bradford, what do you think will be the impact on the company's valuation of having of this subscription price?
You're breaking up a little bit. As far as the accumulation of miles, I feel like there weren't a ton of people, like a majority of people weren't actively using V11 like on every drive. So we've seen an acceleration of just use of people that have FSD already, using that on every drive or nearly every drive. So I think just that alone is going to cause the rate to double from the recent rate. But then to get many more new users on there, I think it's going to cause a further acceleration. So I think it'll be like 2 months or less for the second billion.
Yeah, the other way to look at this is if we assume 1,000 miles of driving per car, which is on the lower side of average miles, then I think 500 million is a lot to add in a month, right? Because that would mean like 25 to 30% of users are actually driving on FSD, 100% of their drives.
Meta, you obviously have a lot of experience. For those of the people who just joined the space or joined for the first time, you have a lot of experience in AI, neural networks. You worked at Tesla before. What do you think will be the impact of adding of the price on the pace of development for the software?
I honestly don't think this impact will be observed from outside because the take rate we're observing externally dropping by 300% means they need to increase the driven mileage by 300% just to keep the rate of incidents coming into the system the same. So I think we're going to continue to see more and more efforts to drive up driving, including, I think Elon tweeted a long time ago, they will give out a free subscription, then they will go international, and who knows what else they will do to continue to drive that up. Omar suggested giving out free supercharging as an incentive to people who had certain mileage. Who knows?
Cheap Teslas, welcome back. How are
I'm good, thank you. I had one question regarding FSD subscription price dropping. I put it in the comments a little bit earlier. Just kind of a conversation topic. Curious what your guys' thoughts are. Obviously, I do a lot of used Teslas. I've kind of priced FSD on the used market around $3,000 value. With the subscription being a lot cheaper now, do you guys have any thoughts on the value of FSD on the used market? I mean, I get a lot of people that reach out to me asking me to find them cars and specifically ask for FSD. Do you think that 50% of those people are now not worried about having FSD paid in full? Just kind of interested in thoughts there.
That's a very good question. Sawyer, did you hear the question?
Yeah, I would think this would hurt resale value. I think what's also hurt resale value is the fact that you couldn't transfer FSD. But the last few quarters, Tesla's allowed that. I don't know if they will continue to allow that. I think they should. But I don't see how this would help. And the only way I think the resale market would value FSD more is if FSD just gets better itself in its performance. And we have seen some of that with FSD 12, but I don't think it's enough to increase aftermarket prices for it.
Yeah, I don't think there's any chance that this would ever increase the secondhand market value of FSD. It has to drop it, period. I'm just curious what your guys' thoughts are as far as how much it drops. Does it drop at 50%? Does it drop at 30%?
Well, it depends, right? It depends. So if you look at this on its own, then you're right. But if you look at it, there are other forces playing here too. The software itself improving could increase resale value, right? Even if the subscription price drops. So there are multiple factors acting on this number at the same time. Meta?
When you say $3,000 is a resale value you're seeing for FSD, is that including EAP in the $3,000 or is that on top of the EAP?
I don't value EAP a whole ton. I'd say maybe like $1,500. I'd probably take it in half. But FSD, like really, most of the cars that I buy secondhand, I'm looking for FSD or nothing. I just don't think enhanced autopilot really has a major effect for most buyers. I think most people are looking for full FSD.
Hey, Yaman. I actually think it's going to have the opposite effect. I think the value of FSD in the used car market is going to go up quite a bit simply because of awareness.
I feel like it's going to be heavily dependent on the age of the vehicle. Like amortizing that over time, how much is it worth extra to pay FSD for a vehicle? Now, this shift from $200 to $100 per month, to me, that it feels like Tesla's lowering the price of the, an FSD subscription down to what its market price actually is, and it's now comparable to buying it outright when you buy the vehicle. So I think the key factor there is going to be, well, how long are you going to have that vehicle? Whereas before, in most situations, you were just straight up better off getting that paying it up front because the subscription was so expensive.
How do you think let's say that the transfer is announced that it's going to stay for the foreseeable future. Of course, they have the right to take it away or to put a transfer fee on there in the future. But if they keep that there, wouldn't that incentivize folks to buy older vehicles, even if they don't, or sorry, with FSD on them and possibly increase the price?
I'd agree with that. Well, they might have to shift the way they do that. I don't know if that question was directed at me, but I think it's a really good point. You have to look at, all right, this, if you're a consumer or a customer, what are the balance of options that you have here? And if I was a customer, yeah, buying it and be able to infinitely transfer would be the best option.
Paul, and then cheap Teslas, and then Kevin.
So let's fast forward to the day when Tesla announces the robotaxi network. What do you all think in terms of people that rent FSD for $99 a month or people that own the license outright? Personally, I think there's got to be an incentive for owning the license. So Tesla, like if you want to put your car on the network, you're going to have to buy the license, not just renting it for $99 a month. That seems like for personal use, but what other ways do you think Tesla could differentiate owning the license from renting it for $99 a month?
In my view, I think all these different variables that we're talking about here, I think they're going to rationalize that in some way and make it so regardless of which option you choose, you end up in a similar position. It's just a matter of, do you want to pay up front or do you want to pay over time?
Cheap Teslas.
Just going back to the comment on potentially, with the transfer continuing on, maybe boosting the value of an FSD car, especially in older cars. I'll just say, I think we kind of see that, or we did kind of see that for a period of time when Tesla offered the free supercharging transfer. I had a lot of people that were looking for just the cheapest free supercharging car they could find. And so I was finding, I probably sold 15 to 20 free supercharging SC01 code cars that were out of warranty, super high miles to people. And all they did was transfer free supercharging to their new car and then dump the vehicle, basically sell it to CarMax, sell it to Carvana or whoever. So yeah, I guess, that's a good point. I think, I don't remember who made that point, but I think that's a good point. Potentially the same thing could happen with FSD.
Kevin, then Meta.
Hey, I was going to add something for cheap Teslas there. One, FSD used market, I know we've been chatting at $2 or $3 grand. I don't think it can really go lower. And if I'm shopping for a used car and it has it, it's worth at least that to me to not have to pay the $99 a month. But I've always felt long term, Tesla's going to get rid of the ability to buy it. And I think this is sort of a step in that direction. They do a trial, get people hooked. They like it. They pay $99 a month, and it will get more expensive, and people are going to have to pay up as they become comfortable with it and like it.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Kevin,
on
do you
that.
want to one second? Kevin, do you want to give a few words on tonight's space where people can join? What time?
A bunch at 9 p.m. East. I don't know, handle, whatever we call that. His name's Chris Hilby. We'll chat about EVs and often and mostly Rivian stuff. But again, we can keep this on the exciting FSD $99 topic. Thank you.
Meta, then George.
Out of curiosity, for cheap Teslas, when people were buying those cars from you that were really cheap and then trading them in, do you know what the difference was in what they were buying it for and then what they were selling it for? Because arguably those who are buying in the used market might be looking for deals, and that may not reflect their value of FSD. It's just what they can get because that's what the market's priced it at.
Right. You're talking about free charging, right? Oh, I think I might have cut out.
Jordan.
Yeah, so I think the supercharging point and the fact that was free or transferable, I don't know all the details behind that. It sounds like it was like a minor loophole. It was really beneficial to a small group of people, but I think if you're talking about something with FSD that's potentially worth hundreds of thousands of dollars per vehicle, I don't see Tesla leaving open loopholes like that. Now, if they do, I will be absolutely stoked about that, and I would support it because I would be in that group of people. But I imagine that there's going to be a different set of rules and a different revenue model for people who have paid for like the 12 or whatever $1,000 it is to have FSD permanently versus the subscription. And for instance, your dollars per mile might change depending on which package you have. But it will, it's going to vary per person. Some people just might prefer one model over the other. But as I said, with that much money on the table, I think they're going to find a way to equalize it and rationalize it.
Dallas.
I think the previous speaker just brought up a good point that I haven't actually thought of yet, and that's that maybe they're moving away from the ownership model, right? I mean, Netflix would never sell you a lifetime subscription to their service, and I'm aware that we're dealing with hardware here and not just software, but in a world of subscriptions where you have to pay to play, I actually see a potential route where this goes strictly subscription, and the people who now feel ripped off for spending $15,000 on the software, hell, maybe they end up lucky and get some sort of lifetime transfer with that, and at the end of the day, this all ends up on a subscription basis. Who knows?
I agree. I think it's going to evolve over time. They're kind of feeling their way forward. There's no roadmap for this. There's no past experience that you can really draw from. It's a new thing. So they're just going to kind of take guesses on their way forward, just the same way that they initially had FSD $200 a month and they've dropped it down to $100. They're learning and they're evolving and adapting as they learn how to operate a system like this.
Absolutely.
Grant.
Yeah, I was just going to say it definitely makes more sense in the long run for this to be a subscription. I think that it probably always did. It's worth remembering that when they first started selling this product at a high, ticket amount, it was because Tesla desperately needed cash.
Adrian, welcome. How are you?
Yo, what's up, man? Kind of like new to the conversation, so we'll have to listen a bit more to kind of add to the structure because I don't know what's happening. But yeah, man, it's been really great. I just came back from Austin. I had recently experienced the Cybertruck. That thing is absolutely insane. It's unbelievable. Oh, and the FSD is next level. So if anyone says that software is like not sufficient, in the way that, say, someone would claim, and we all know who exactly this is, would say, hey, it's not sufficient, it's not working. It drove me and I'm still alive. It was very defective software. It seems to have kept me alive just enough to take me to various interesting places. And I feel very safe. I feel very alive. Nothing broken, nothing missing. More experience added. But yeah, very cool stuff. I highly recommend trying it out. Just like, maybe even get an Uber and see if you get lucky. I'm pretty sure some of them have like FSD, and maybe you can convince them to activate it.
Well, Grant, Adrian sounds pretty alive to me after using FSD. What do you think?
Well, I was going to respond to that directly by saying that is good, but also not the stance that's going to be adopted by regulators when deciding whether or not it's safe. It's not enough to say, I didn't die, therefore this thing is amazing. I mean, it's got to prove out a little more than that at scale.
I think we should adopt kind of an error rate for this. Like for regulators, they need to understand how the system works, and they also need to accept a certain margin for error. Now, this kind of like sounds crazy in a sense, that we have to accept the fact that sometimes things go wrong. But I mean, we have to accept this. We accept this with humans. When we give them a license and we send them out there, we actually accept that there's a chance that one of these humans, maybe even more than one, will in fact have something like a DUI. They will get drunk, they'll drive around, they don't know their limits, and they will cause a lot of damage. So I think if we could perhaps come to a agreement upon what the margin of error realistically should be, then I think everything is, okay. And this also has to kind of like fall in a specific type of spectrum, because there can be fatal errors, such as hitting a person, impacting a car, and there can be less fatal errors like what that Waymo did with all its LiDAR tech, driving it into a construction site. I think regulators like that one too. I think it needs more LiDAR.
Meta.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't know if Grant or Fudd, have you guys read the safety report from Waymo? Because in that they talk about how many miles they had in real world, how many miles they had in simulation, and what the regulators required from them. None of what I saw in there says they needed LiDAR or talked about the LiDAR. What they needed was a certain amount of time, and they didn't have a certain amount of mileage requirement. They actually worked with them to say, convince us that the following things are safe, and they had a back and forth. So I don't think the argument that they're going to require LiDAR or a certain amount of criteria pans out if you look at the safety report.
Grant, then Dallas.
I haven't read the safety report, but I will. I'll ask you. I'll touch on a couple things, but then would ask what the actual thing to Google is. Let's say. So first, to respond to Adrian, I agree with what you're saying. I mean, I do think that people are overly, risk averse. I do think realistically there are always going to be errors. It doesn't truly need to be perfect, and we do have to accept some level of error rate. The metric I've typically heard cited is miles per disengagement. Some people have said it needs to be close to 1 million. I would be curious if you have a thought on whether that's the right metric and what the actual number should be. And then just Meta, to your point, I think that that could be the case, but I would also just caveat that this is something that's going to be becoming more of a thing, and regulation can shift. I mean, with a lot of new technology, it often takes a little bit of time before the regulators catch up.
Miles per disengagement, I think is that's a bit of a complicated metric to use, because it is far too general. You could, for instance, be traveling on a wide open road with basically almost no complexity and have no disengagements, and then drive around in a city and have many different disengagements happening at places where, say, an AI, for instance, hasn't always been, like really weird, complex scenarios that are even very rare, because this is exactly what will cause a disengagement, just a random error. So I don't think we can actually use this as a metric. Perhaps we could adjust it with, again, what I mentioned of complexity. It's say you can go a certain amount of miles within a city without disengagement. Okay, we could use this. Then you have to specify the complexity of the city, which we could probably ascertain. But just as a blanketed term saying 1 million miles to disengagement, that's not realistic.
Dallas, then.
So I want to pose the question of what was the motivating factor, or what do you guys think the motivating factor was for this kind of out of the blue price reduction? I know that most of us can agree that the this was coming at some point, and I do subscribe to the idea that they were intentionally pricing out the masses while it was a little less trustworthy.
Yeah, so we talked about this before, and I think the general consensus right now is that Tesla's trying to drive adoption and accumulate more miles and collect more disengagement data. Grant?
I figured that had been discussed. Yep, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Adrian.
Can you guys hear Grant?
Did he work?
Yeah, I think he just cut off. Grant, try again. All right, Grant, I'm going to move you down, bring you back up. Chance to go ahead.
Yeah, do you guys think the reason that they switched to this lower pricing had to do with some kind of the FSD full take rate is sort of going down with the high interest rate environment?
I mean, I think Tesla is pulling all stops right now to drive FSD miles. So we should see FSD miles, accumulate FSD miles to increase like a wall. That chart will look like a wall finally.
also data. The data is very valuable. If you have more people in more diverse scenarios gathering data, that's really bullish, because that is worth more than gold. You know, a lot of AI companies have actually needed to steal data or even farm data from other AIs in order to build their AI for their specific product that they have. But in case of Tesla, if they have more cars drive around, the AI gets stronger because the data set becomes more diverse. So I think it's not just about the price itself, but with additional adoption, you actually get more diversity, which makes the AI far stronger. This, I think, is what people are overlooking here. Strength in numbers.
Great. Adrian, earlier we had a conversation about how many FSD users people expect by year end, given all the stops that Tesla's pulling. What do you think? How many paid FSD users by year end?
Yeah, I wouldn't be able to give you an accurate number. I can't really pull one out of my head, unfortunately.
Yeah. Jordan.
I'll attempt to answer the question of why did they do this now? Why did they drop it from 200 to 100 now? I think the ultimate reason is, as you guys have pointed out, that it's to drive more people into FSD and collect data. But I think it might be kind of Elon's habit of starting the price on things high, like they did with the Model S, and when it has broader appeal and broader use, then they lower the price. There's a small number of passionate, crazy people out there who are willing to pay more for a product earlier in its life cycle when it has less to offer. But there's this, if you can increase the functionality to where more people might want to use it and lower the price to where they would buy it, hopefully that makes sense.
Thank you. Pete Tesla, earlier you mentioned that people are asking for FSD when they come to you to buy used Teslas. Can you give us more color, maybe more specific anecdotes?
Yeah, I just think obviously it's a sought after option, and I think on the used market, if you can get a Tesla with FSD for $3,000 more than a Tesla with the standard autopilot, then compared to new, it's probably something that most people want to take. But that's kind of what brought up my question about with the subscription now being so cheap, half of those people might not even care anymore, and they just want to jump on the subscription, paying $99 a month. So I don't know. We'll see. I'll be able to report back in a little bit and see maybe how the market shifted a little bit.
Thank you. About
Hey, I have a question for this panel. Do we think that the next lever Tesla will pull is on the insurance side? Say if you want less nagging and level 3, level 4, buy the Tesla insurance and they can take on the responsibility.
Meta, what do you think?
Do you mind asking the question again?
Do you think Tesla will next take on responsibility for any accidents on FSD?
No, I don't think that's the next move. I think there's many other ways to continue to incentivize driving miles before they go that route.
Do you
And I
think they
don't
can
think
sell more insurance if they provide that option?
Meta, that
They could theoretically do it for Tesla insured customers. I think the easier way to go about it would be to just say the amount of miles you're driving on FSD turns into a discount, kind of like a safe driver discount. And we probably will see this in some form. However, I'm not sure that the Tesla insured vehicles are actually a sizable number. So they might have better ways of driving up mileage on, say, long weekends, offering free supercharging to those who use FSD, or free supercharging for the amount of miles you drove on FSD, various other kinds of ways of driving up those numbers.
Yeah, I think the insurance question is too early because I don't think they're going to offer an insurance for the FSD portion of things until it gets good enough to where it's like level 4. And when they do offer it, it might make sense to just bundle it in with a subscription.
I agree. I mean, even if they just say, FSD miles are free, but you're still responsible if something happens, so you still have to monitor. That would drive adoption a lot. I mean, people would want to save just the insurance miles. And I think that would be enough to get to 10 billion miles. But the taking on the liability is a last resort just because of the risk, reputational risk.
Yeah, I think the other big risk here is if somebody's in FSD supervising it and they have some subconscious understanding that if they take over, they have to pay more, that disincentivizes them from doing the right thing, and that could look bad to regulators. And a second part of that is if somebody takes over and then they subsequently get an accident, there could be a debate about, oh, I had to take over last minute. So the level of complexity that comes may not be worth it.
Yeah. Hey, Meta, I have another question for you. So I pinned at the top. We talked about this earlier before you joined. NTSB investigates second fatal Mach-E crash potentially involving Bluetooth. You've seen this before. What do you think about it?
It sucks that somebody died, first off. I think accidents happen, right? I don't know how many miles Blue Cruise has done on the highway. I think we should take that all in consideration. The other aspect is my understanding is Blue Cruise doesn't require supervision, right, on the highway? Can you confirm?
Yeah, hands off. Exactly. Hands off mode.
But it still requires, there's an interior camera watching you, right?
I'm not positive on it, but I think so.
Okay.
Kevin, do
Yeah.
you know?
I guess at a high level, I would just say before we jump to conclusions on this, we should be mindful of defeat devices, what the person was doing, were they wearing sunglasses? There's so many other things that we saw this with the Tesla community. I wouldn't want to jump to the same conclusions about another one.
Adrian, what do you think about this?
About the Blue Cruise crash?
Right.
I think that's the point where we really should be asking ourselves, is this software defective? Because right now we have a focus on FSD being defective. What about everyone else? You know, there's never any conversation about that. But honestly, there's not much to say. Like, this stuff can happen, I think will happen, even to FSD at some point. I think we will have to come to grips with the fact that if so many people are going to use it, there will come a time that someone may die from this. It's just chaos. It's how it works. Even when you send up rockets into space, you accept that there's a chance the rocket may blow up. It's a very low chance, may never occur, but if you do it enough, chance catches up with you and it does occur. You just have to do it enough times.
Jimmy?
Yeah, Blue Cruise has a camera located right under the speedometer, and it faces you through the steering wheel.
Meta?
Yeah, sorry, give me a second to form my question.
Hey, John.
Yeah, just a quick anecdote, and to back up what Adrian's saying about accepting these, a certain amount of bad things are going to happen. I've taken my brother for a few drives on FSD, and before he wasn't really impressed with it. But the last drive with version 12, I took him for a drive, and his eyes lit up while we were traveling down the road, and he's like, "You know what? I would rather be in this than be in the car with a drunk driver. This is a much better option." It goes to show that human error rate, and I think people are going to realize that over time.
Yeah, I don't know the exact numbers, but I'm pretty confident that the distracted driving numbers are far higher than drunk driving, including things like tired driving. And I think Rohan put this out a little while ago, but if NHTSA's goal is to reduce accidents, which it is, and they have already instituted passive safety requirements like seat belts and airbags, it wouldn't be surprising that with the scrutiny that they're applying on Tesla, there's a case to be made that active driver monitoring with a camera facing the inside of the cabin should be a requirement for all vehicles, because texting while driving can be done in an ICE vehicle as much as it can be done in an EV.
Mike?
Thanks, Yaman. This question is for Meta. Can you, well, just to preface, as the number of FSD miles increases with certainly the incentives and the reduction in subscription prices. As those miles increase, the goal is to really focus on those edge case disengagements. Can you walk us through the specific architecture of the triggering from Tesla to isolate edge case disengagements versus disengagements that are not particularly useful? Can you walk us specifically through that topology, that topography of the architecture of the triggers?
Sure. Just think of it like they write a simple sentence that says, we need more examples where you're not confident about stopping or going. And there's some kind of trade-off maybe in the neurology that's happening. This would be expressed by like, 2 neurons are within a certain range. And when that occurs, it would say, great, record that clip and send it up. Because what's terrible for neurons is to have them kind of like be at the 50%. You want them to be bimodal. You want them to say yes or no. When they're uncertain, you want to collect more of those clips and send them up to the cloud and say, great, we've got more clips where things were uncertain. Let's help raise certainty in those situations. And then the other scenarios are things like find cars with bikes on the back. Well, for that, you would train a very specific trigger that says, does this image have a car with a bike on the back? You would run that asynchronously in shadow mode, most likely not on vehicles with FSD, but you could do it on both, depending on how much resources they have. That detector would just be running in the background, and every time it saw a car with a bike on the back, it would say, oh, great, let me collect this clip. But importantly, they usually do these things with the ability to turn it on and off, because you don't want just loads and loads of data going to your servers. There's this weird thing about the internet where you pay for the bandwidth you receive, whether or not what you received was what you wanted. So you got to control for that.
How difficult is this architecture to trigger? To ask a different way. So the March of Nines, it's not about 10 billion miles getting orders of magnitude more disengagement data. It's really isolating those edge case disengagements. Has Tesla built this out? Is this a real thing?
So this is why in the industry it's called data mining, right? You're mining for the diamond in the rough out of a sea of dirt. So it's not that simple, but as you solve more and more of the problems in a real world scenario like Tesla's, the problem does get easier. A lot of people are taking over for comfort reasons. As people are reporting comforts higher, now you're hearing more and more zero disengagement drives. That's what helps them get the data. For all intents and purposes, if you're willing to sit in the back and there's no disengagement and you get to your destination, even if it was driving close to the curb or whatever else, it achieved the goal and it can get better over time.
And a question for you from live chat. When Elon estimated 6 billion miles in early 2016, that's needed for regulatory approval. That was on previous code. With end-to-end neural nets, does that change? Does that figure change at all?
I think he was saying 6 billion for regulatory approval. So my guess is he's coming from what it would take to convince regulators. I don't know what variables he used in the input for his back of the envelope calculation, but if my assumptions are correct, I don't think that changes. That's for worldwide approval. I think that's fair. I think for the first approval, I think for the first approval, the best model is for people to go and read the case studies behind Cruise and Waymo, who already did receive it, and then look at the Cruise model and see how they lost it. And I think what's clear to me from that is it's a very human negotiated thing. It's not a strict, you need to hit this many miles and you get it for free.
All right. We have Machine, go ahead.
I have some questions for Meta. Are you available? this is around sort of the neural scaling laws, such as chinchilla. And my question is, in these studies, when they talk about increasing data available, usually I presume they're just, taking a model, retraining it from scratch with more data, at various amounts, various magnitudes. Whereas in Tesla's case, that may not be the case. They may take a previously trained model and now augment with new data. And also, they may not be needing as much baseline data, right? And they may focus more on the edge case data. So I'm wondering if you could comment on how that relates to the magnitude of data that's needed over time. Because if you look at these scaling papers, you're looking at orders of magnitude of increase in data to get, on log scale, right? To get a log scale improvement in error loss. And I'm just wondering how that relates to what Tesla's doing, because they may be, being more efficient with the data collected. And so then does that order of magnitude scaling change? So I just wonder if you had thoughts on that.
I do have thoughts on that. I'm going to be mindful how I answer this question. First off, it's a very intelligent question, machine. Thanks for thinking of a thoughtful question. I thought you were going to troll me. The best analogy I can give here is to think of like you're playing a video game and you hit save, right? So you complete a level, you hit save, you go to the next level. Maybe you die a couple of times, you keep trying, you keep practicing, and eventually you get better. You get to a new place, then you hit save. If you were to play the entire game back with only the keystrokes that you had to do to get to that second save level, that would be all the tokens that are kind of embedded in that saved game. In that way, every time you hit save and then you go to parameter efficient fine tuning, which is what you're referring to with the additive approaches, which there are many, you can think of it like, okay, this checkpoint has 100 million, a billion tokens or clips, whatever it is. And then everything is additive from there. And then when you find a new place that you like, you then usually create a new foundation model. So let's say you had a checkpoint, then you had one release, you had a second release, you had a third release. Maybe by your fourth release, you say, starting from the checkpoint and then fine-tuning is now getting close to the amount of cost and time of just retraining the entire model. And you retrain the entire model, and it comes pretty close to being the same thing. However, now you have a save point that you start from. So there's a cost trade-off, but it doesn't reduce the data requirement.
So you would still agree in Tesla's case that it would follow these scaling laws accordingly, that the data would need to increase, an order of magnitude to expect, I guess, a similar, expect a decrease in log loss or error rate, whatever the metric is, I guess. So if you combine that, I assume you agree with the same increase in parameters and compute time. How do you that are found in those papers? And by the way, I was looking at a vision transformer specific scaling law paper where they still show under those situations that the error loss, even on a log scale, does go sublinear at some point, which means that you need increasingly more data and more compute to reduce the error further, which from a common sense, you would expect that to happen at some point. So I'm just trying to wrap that all together with respect to FSD and trying to understand exactly how much of each of these things are we going to need to get to reduce, error rate to a robotaxi level.
Yeah, that's the $1 trillion question. But you're misquoting the papers a little bit. So the 20-to-1 scaling law on tokens to parameters in the chinchilla paper, that's for if you're going to train your model and you're going to serve it one time each. That's obviously not how things actually go. The ratios are much higher. If every dollar you spend on training you're going to spend exactly that many dollars on serving. If it turns out you're going to serve your model 10 times as often, then the llama paper points out you can go ahead and spend 10x more on tokens and get a doubling or a halving of parameters for the same quality. That doesn't speak to, you can't use that math to figure out how many clips are needed. It's the quality of the clips. But if that holds, then every time you 10x the amount of data you've brought in, you double the quality with the same parameter count. So how many doublings do we need to get to L5 is now the open-ended question.
So, right. I mean, so to me, under that premise, if you're doubling, you're talking about reducing the error rate by half or doubling of a log loss. Like, what is the metric?
You can
that's
consider
doubling?
cutting the error rate in half.
Right. So if you expect, if I would expect, for instance, that the error rate would have to go down, let's make it nice and mathematically easy. 64, 1/64th. So that's 6 doublings. Then you would need the data order magnitude to go up.
You would need about 6 billion miles, yes.
10 to the 6th increase versus now.
Yep.
And 10 to the 6th, would it be similar for compute?
If you're holding the parameters constant, yes.
Okay.
But it's to keep this, it's cumulative compute we're talking about, not the final number.
Okay. I'm just trying to frame that all around exactly how much and how long would it take to achieve those numbers for Tesla, for compute data. And then the third parameter there is number of parameters or model size, which, for training is one thing. Maybe that's not a limitation, but then there's potentially limitation on size for, on inference. So I'm just trying to this is like one of the fundamental questions, right? Like when can you achieve FSD on a car, deployable on a car? These all have to be achievable. And that's hard for me to wrap my, to accurately assess right now.
Yeah, so this is where there's ways to cheat, right? So most papers are written in like a white box, as in like you start from nothing and where you end up. Tesla gets to cheat by giving out FSD for free. Tesla gets to cheat by incentivizing people to drive more in different ways. That pulls the data forward. Another way they get to cheat is by using simulation. And they've already shown, right, multiple times in CVPR and other talks that they can use language to construct video. So while that's not one-to-one, for many situations, they don't need that. And then the other thing is they have shadow mode. So they're collecting tons of data in shadow mode, which again is another way to cheat. So as we're trying to calculate this, there's a lot of different variables we have to keep in mind.
Okay. We probably need a better word than cheat, but just as a reminder, this space is sponsored by my patrons. If you'd like to become a patron, the link is at the top of your screens. Without patrons, there's no way this space would be available. So if you're enjoying daily, please join Patreon. Clinton, go ahead.
Hi, I'd like to thank the host for bringing me up. I just, before I guess make a comment or ask a question, I just want to find out, is the conversation wholly around FSD, or can we talk about sort of other aspects of Tesla?
Right now, because we have such strong board on FSD, I want to focus the conversation on FSD. Meta, we have a question for you before I go to Corey real quick. Clinton, just hold tight if your question is something else. That's fine. Drew asks, when do we see V12 take over V11 freeway stack?
I'm excited to see this myself. I don't know, right? I would imagine what we've heard is they've worked on reverse and they've worked on highway. I'm guessing their QA teams are hard at work validating that. We know they spent a really long time validating city streets, so I imagine highway is going to be one of the last things they ship. Probably, if I had to guess, sometime May.
Okay, and Drew guessed less than 3 months. So you guys agree?
I'm
Corey
curious what
Fox.
Machine thinks.
Question for
Machine, do
Meta.
you agree? Yeah. Hold on, Corey. Machine, do you agree with that?
With what timeline?
For
When
highway.
does V12 take over highway?
I mean, I would hope soon. I don't have an estimate. It's got to be on one of these next major builds.
Yeah. Yeah. Corey.
Hi, Meta. I noticed my new Model Y has the IR illuminators hidden next to the camera, similar to what Ford's doing. Wondering what mapping techniques Ford is using to enable hands-free Blue Cruise. Are they driving a vehicle laden with cameras down major throughways every day? Or how exactly are they mapping these highways, and why can't Tesla do the same?
I missed the first part. What's the vehicle that's mapping?
The right now the F-150 Lightning and the Mach-E, so Ford's Blue Cruise technology.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's not that Tesla can't do the mapping. It's just if you go the route of mapping everything, then you introduce a number of dependencies that Tesla is better off avoiding. If you have these HD maps, you still at some point have to deal with a dynamic situation, right? So construction, somebody walking across the street, because you have to do that deep reasoning anyway. Tesla's deciding to build out all the deep reasoning with the hypothesis, which I stand by, that they don't need to actually have the map data once that's achieved. I think the better comparison is to things like Waymo versus highway only driving, because they're solving a different problem.
Thank you. Clinton.
Hi. So I guess my question or my comment pertains to this discussion, but maybe not the way that a lot of the folks would want to hear it, I guess. I have no issue with FSD, and I hope Tesla is super successful as FSD continues to improve and all of that kind of stuff. But I kind of feel like as a Tesla fan, I'd like to see Tesla focus or divert maybe more resources or attention into the original goal of sort of global EV adoption. And I mean, I know that's still the goal and they're still doing that. I sometimes worry that as Tesla fans or as electric vehicle fans, that a lot of people in the community, like distracted, I guess is not the right word, but like tend to focus a lot of attention on FSD. And to me, like I'd rather have 100% EV adoption rate and like 5% FSD than than in reverse. Do you know what I mean? And I'm just
Machine,
curious.
what do you think?
I mean, what do you want us to do about it? You want me to go beg people to buy EVs? I'm not going to beg anyone. The only person I beg is your mom's mom.
Wow.
Yeah.
Machine, that was a self burn. I don't know if you realize it or not. It didn't sound as cool as you thought.
I would say that it doesn't.
Now that's like 600 people, and that's the highest he's pulled that mom joke. Jordan.
I would say that it doesn't matter what we focus on here and what we talk about. There's people at Tesla pushing just as hard as they always have. So, yeah, it's kind of like the stock market. People always talking about what's moving the stock market price and all the sentiment around that. It's like, well, it's out of your control. There are people working on it.
Well, I mean, not to mention the fact that once it's of autonomy, you've increased the utility of these vehicles by 5 times, 10 times. That's a huge step change in converting miles from ICE to EVs. Meta.
Yeah, I was just going to provide a little bit of detail for the question you were asking, Machine. Everybody thinks of disengagements per mile, and I think that's a good proxy, but we shouldn't lose sight of the fact that many of those disengagements are clustered into like the same kind of issue. So while these are good proxies, the real thing that needs to be reduced is the number of clusters. So while we can do some simple math on miles to disengagement and the halving and apply it to that, That would be a conservative number.
Do you think that Tesla only needs to reduce clusters by like 10x then? Is that you're getting closer to that than 64x?
I'm probably closer to 3 to 4x, but yeah, a 3 to
3
4
to
orders of
4x,
magnitude.
that's it?
3 to 4 orders of magnitude. Sorry, I said it wrong.
Oh, yeah, okay. Well, that's a lot. How do you align that with the idea that the model size, according to these scaling papers, would have to go up, a few orders of magnitude? How would you align that with fitting it into a hardware 3 or hardware 4 or even a hardware 5 inference
We kn-
chip and memory?
We know that hardware 4 is not using all of its capacity. I do think it's probably proportional to the input size, but even ignoring that, every time you 10x the data, you effectively double the parameters. So it's kind of like the exposure setting on a camera. There's a equation. You can hold two things constant and then pick the third. So they can't change the parameter count. They can't change the quality requirement. All they can change is data.
Are you saying though that you think that scaling law applies, that you could literally not increase the model size at all and still eventually get to the same level of accuracy given enough data?
Within reason. Obviously, you couldn't do it with one neuron, but yes.
And then part of that is, wouldn't you expect at some point the scaling laws to go sublinear? That at some point you would still get increments, or excuse me, decrements in error rate as you feed in more data, but that it slows down, right?
Yeah. Yes, you're right. But I think for a large enough net that can overfit the data, as I'm sure you're aware, if a net can overfit the data, it can probably solve the problem. So as long as the net is large enough, it's a matter of time.
And you think the nets that fit on hardware 4, let's say, are capable to be large enough to overfit?
I think so. I think there's good supporting evidence that it can be done. And the other part is theoretically they can have the reaction time, and then you basically have doubled the effective parameters.
So I think that's the crux of whether or not Tesla's going to solve this problem, or under what timeline, is that assumption, which maybe is correct, right? Is that if they can overfit on the current hardware 4, then it's solvable. And if not, then it can't. So it'd be interesting to find out.
Yeah, I'm also operating under the assumption that when they did the hardware updates, they probably ran some tests when they decided what numbers to pick, right? They didn't just say, this seems big enough and stop.
Jordan.
Sorry, I was having trouble pulling myself off mute. All right, so you guys are talking about things that are more in depth than I understand, but it sounds like we wouldn't be able to work this out unless we had a strong understanding of their current baseline. Is that correct? Because if they've just gotten a whole bunch more compute, and it's opened up a lot of capability for them, but we don't know how much of the data set that they have that they're currently ingesting and using, because the amount of compute they have is a moving target. So do we really even have a baseline to kind of project what the end result is, or how long it's going to take?
You're right in saying we don't have that baseline. We definitely don't know how much compute they have. We also have to think about when you do the foundational model, you're probably swarming your entire data center. And when you switch to parameter efficient fine tuning, you're probably using about 10% of that data center. So the other 90% could be used for generating simulated data, for training Optimus, for doing various other things. And then that simulated data could then be used to continue in training the model. And there's been a lot of papers that have shown quality simulated data doesn't harm the model. It actually helps. So if they needed to chase after really rare edge cases of like a deer running across a highway, they could maybe do that a lot with simulation.
Yeah, so so that's one side of it, is the understanding that baseline, but the other is, it seems like what's missing from this discussion is, what is the desired end state? As are we talking about our target being able to earn some profitability and earn some money from these vehicles? Because you can constrain them in certain ways to say, all right, it can only travel on this type of roads or in these places, and we can still earn money off of the vehicles and that hardware, even if it can't do everything.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that's likely where they compromise if they have to compromise.
Charity trades.
Hey guys, I'm actually using V12 right now, but I want to ask a quick question. So Meta, you brought up a great point about the clustering kind of issue, right, with regards to disengagements. I definitely agree with you, and I would like to have a conversation about taking a little bit more of a nuanced and practical approach to that line of reasoning. So for example, right, if you think about a geographic region, and we think about this kind of like clustering concept, or this, kind of set of issues that are commonly found in certain geographic locations under certain scenarios. I want to get your take on, okay, well, if it's, let's say, for example, most of the clustering happens in more metropolitan downtown type of areas, very busy, traffic, hours, et cetera, et cetera. Well, what does that imply in terms of, let's say, the times or conditions or the geographic areas where, let's say, FSD is already operating at a human-like level? So, for example, with permits that were authorized to cruise, it was very much kind of like a step-by-step approach. First they were allowed a dozen vehicles that were human supervised, and then they were also restricted to certain parts of San Francisco. Then they were able to operate at certain times of the day using unsupervised robo taxis with a small fleet, and then gradually increase that fleet. So if we apply that same type of principle towards the launch of, let's say, Tesla's robotaxi network, wouldn't it seem to reason that we actually might be much closer than we think for the vast majority of trips, let's say taken in suburban areas or rural areas under proper weather conditions and so forth?
Meta?
I agree that that is definitely something Tesla could do. It depends on what their goal is. If they're trying to maximize the speed to which they can launch in one geography, that is a valid approach. What they would just do is filter all the clusters to say, I'm only interested in the clusters that are triggering in the following geographies. We've seen that to not be the case because they've prioritized fixing things in different parts of the country, depending on maybe they're prioritizing things that are showing up on X first. Whatever their algorithm is for how they choose to prioritize, a simple one would be to say, what are the largest clusters? Go after those first. But they could theoretically choose to say, we're going to work with regulators in particular regions. We're going to tackle the clusters affecting those regions. We're going to get the number of trips above a certain threshold. We're already seeing, based on FSD data tracker, well over 90% of trips don't require disengagements, critical disengagements. So those numbers will probably be the things they focus on, depending on how they go about it. If they go with NHTSA, they probably have to go all of US. If they go with California or Arizona first, then they probably just go based on what those states prefer.
Okay, we have a couple of new speakers. Nitesh Mehta, go ahead.
Hey there, I have two quick questions. The first is, does anyone have any actuarial data on insurance for automobiles, miles, like the miles you drive per accident, or, the cohort based on age? I just want to see, what does it take to get 10x that in with full self-driving supervised? And then my second question is, what I'm thinking is that this $99 price point is really great for sort of a player one, like if you're just a single player mode. But the folks like me that paid the $6,000 or more for full self-driving, maybe that's going to be offered for the Robo fleet, Robo taxi. Well, we can offer our car in that fleet. I don't know. Just curious if other people have thought that as well. Thanks.
I can answer the first question if you'd like, VA.
Go ahead.
Well, just really quick, one place you can get that type of data is through the CPUC, which is California Public Utilities Commission or whatever. And essentially they have all of the publicly available data from every company that's been issued a permit for autonomous vehicles. So you can look at Waymo's data, you can look at Cruise's data, et cetera, in case that might be helpful.
Nobody has referred to me as VA in a while. You must be early.
I think it's a smooth little nickname. I don't know. It kind of stuck with me.
Yeah.
But yes, I am old school. I've been following you since the forums.
Yeah, exactly. X-Phoenix. Sorry, hold on one second. Nitish, what was their second question again?
I was just, I'm thinking about like the pricing that they announced today, and I think the $99 price point is great for like a single player mode. And then if you bought the software outright, maybe that's going to be introduced. That's going to allow us to participate in the Robo fleet. That just because otherwise I'm trying to figure out how he's going to.
Yeah.
If you paid $12,000 or $15,000 for the license, how are you? Like right now, you're just getting. There's going to be some backlash. But I think if you notice also
Well, first of all, I don't think
supervised.
I don't think. Right? Yeah, I don't think many people paid $15,000 for it. I mean, I think the number of people who paid $15,000 is very small. I think most people pay $10,000 or less.
Right, but even that, the payback doesn't make sense, and so it's like I gotta feel like he's gonna make Tesla does this. They do make people whole in some way in the future. I'm trying to figure out.
People who paid for it over the last 6 years also got to enjoy it over the last 6 years. It's been working on the highway, great. I think there's a lot of value people have gotten, and there's no reason it would be counter to the mission to restrict vehicles and not incentivize vehicles from becoming autonomous. In fact, it might get to a point when the vehicles are working really well that Tesla offers to buy the vehicles back and put them back out as robotaxis from people who are not putting them out as robotaxis.
I agree. Nitish, any follow-up thoughts on?
No, I'm just trying to rationalize it, but no, we'll see what he decides to do. I know I paid $10,000. I'm just sort of out of pocket, right? And I feel like I'm happy for everyone that gets it, but I don't know if I would have done it again. And the 6 years that I enjoyed it, it was great, but actually it was a lot of work.
Well, let me ask you this. So you've been enjoying for 6 years, right?
I don't know if I've been enjoying it. I've been participating in the hopes that to reach to where we are. But when I tell people, I'm like, yeah, it's not the most convenient. The 11, like you always had to pay attention. You always had to do a little bit of. It was actually more stressful. My partner wouldn't allow me to use it when I was in the car with her, because she found it annoying. And so I was just doing it more as an investor and as diligence.
Would you sell it back to Tesla?
At the price I paid, I would, and I would subscribe at the $99.
No, not at the price, but you've had it for 6 years. Obviously, your car is older. Would you sell it for like half the price, 5,000?
No, because I'm gonna still subscribe at $99. I mean, I have to kind of figure out the math and sit down with spreadsheet to see. But I mean, I would potentially sell it back if they let me subscribe at the $99. I mean, just it's pure economics at the end.
But I guess the other thing you're kind of risking is an increase back up to 149, 199, 249 stuff in the future, right?
Agreed. Yeah, I mean, they're probably going to do that at some point, right? Like just as things go from supervised to full self-driving, I'm sure the price will increase. From 199. I mean, there's going to be some backlash. I don't know how you're going to do that. 99, maybe go to 129. I don't know, but back to 199 when it's real full self-driving is my guess.
Meta,
I don't know.
Charity, then Mike.
I think this is going to bother even more people who quibble over pricing. But apparently, if you go to Canada, you can now get FSD for $99 Canadian. So you could drive across the border, maybe get a car there, and then live in the United States to save $20 a month. I will not quit my job for stand-up comedy because clearly I got no laughs.
No, it's fine. I was just sending a message to Nitesh. Nitesh, there's something in front of your speakers or your phone, or maybe if your phone is on the table, the audio is coming out of your speakers, bouncing back into the mic. You can just put like something soft under it. All right, Charity.
Yeah, so really quick, I think that the way that Tesla will handle this is by offering a different percentage take rate when robo taxis are available. That's going to be my guess, and I think that they'll do right by them. But we'll see. And at the end of the day, all of us who bought FSD over the years and kind of viewed it as a call option on autonomy, we kind of took a gamble as well, right? So we paid only a fraction of what the true cost will be over the long term, and unfortunately, it didn't really pan out for the first several years, but we're closer, and I think they'll do right by the take rates.
Okay. I pinned at the top of your screens a post by Tesla North America, also in Canada, 99 Canadian dollars a month. Wow. That is amazing.
But you have to live in Canada. It's very unfortunate.
I mean, if you live
Just
near the
offended,
border, does this mean you get to buy the car in Canada and then live south of the border?
I don't know. This is that's an amazing deal. You're getting closer to your goal, Meta. Your target. I'm glad I didn't take that bet.
But Grant did.
Did he? No, that bet is not officially recognized by the space.
it was from the space. We settled at 900.
No, I know. I did not condone that space. Randy. Randy.
Hello, I'm here. So great spaces, you guys. Really, really enjoying it a ton. One of the questions I have right now is with regard to what Tesla's going to do about real significant problems that might happen during a taxi drive, during a robotaxi drive. Some of the ideas that we've had over the last couple of days on my channel have been that maybe there will be a capability to operate the vehicle by voice or by some kind of device or by making some kind of gestures with the screen or moving something on the screen, or that in a real emergency, maybe there would be a Cadillac type arrangement where you actually get to speak to a human and have some kind of interaction.
As long as there's a steering wheel, Randy, you can always take over.
Right? I know. I'm talking about non-steering wheel.
They'll probably have some kind of thing you can use to override it. Given that these are steer by wire, you could certainly have some kind of steering device in there for a while. Additionally, it doesn't compromise the safety of the vehicle if there's an OnStar like thing where the passenger has to ask for it to be taken over. Then that would be fine. The danger is if somebody from the outside just can come into the car without the car phoning out first. So it's very possible that the way the human intervention stuff would work is a person presses, I need help or I'm stuck. That could theoretically work. Another way that could happen is the moment you start a trip, the car could phone out, establish a connection, and go that way. So I wouldn't rule human takeovers like Waymo and Cruise have out of capabilities for Tesla yet.
Thank you. That's what I've been thinking.
Hey, Machine, I have a question for you. So when Tesla announced the $99 a month in US, the stock price went up after hours. But then when the Canadians joined the party, the stock went down. What do you make of that?
Listen, I think not much about it. Tesla, I value the FSD subscriptions as probably worth $3 in earnings by 2030 as an L2 assist, making assumptions of 5 million vehicles and $50 on average per month. And if you discount that back, it does add some value. but I'm more concerned about FSD as a robotaxi. But I do think that does help support the stock, if that makes sense. But yeah. Anyways, I'll stop talking.
Okay, thank you. Meta, the next Phoenix.
Wait, just to clarify, Machine, did you say that by 2030 you think the subscription take rate for FSD is going to be how much? $50?
I'm separating out robotaxi level competency and product versus assistive software, and I'm saying let's exclude what you would value for robotaxi, and just on what people will pay for an L2 assist, assuming at $50 a month. That's on average. That's on the whole fleet. So basically, that's assuming everyone gets it. Obviously, you could price it differently, and less people would take it. There'll also be competition for that because there will be eventually other companies subscribe. Anyways, yeah.
Okay, next Phoenix.
Hey guys, it's been a minute since I asked to come up because I think you were talking about like data and FSD and robotaxi and all that. And so I was just going to point out that like in terms of quality of data, I would say that out of all the car companies out there, I would think Tesla would have like a shoe in for knowing someone who has really great satellite imagery and stuff like that. So like I feel like it has a pretty good foundation there. And then also, if they were to factor in having like a robo taxi button, like I've heard Warren speak about being a cool way to let your Tesla make money for it. If they get that put in there kind of on a superficial level, those additional owners, those ones that are getting in now on the ground floor, learning how it works and contributing to the data, they might be the ones that would be the first to have that, opportunity to make that money from using it as a robotaxi. So I think that there's a lot of great things happening, and I think it'll happen faster than 5 years, 10 years. I think it will be much faster than that.
Adrian.
Yeah, I got a quick question for Meta. It's kind of like on the learning side of things, just to make it just a bit for accuracy. So like kind of harken back on what I said about diverse experiences. So if you have cheaper FSD, that means you have more cars that gather more data, thereby exponentially improving, the AI. So in case of human beings, isn't it true that human beings increase the general utility of a skill by amassing diverse experiences associated with it? Like, aren't we doing the same thing as human beings?
Yeah. Humans do a much better job of learning quickly. There's actually a few papers that came out this last couple of weeks that are on my desk to read. I have not read them yet, but continuous learning is a big buzzword you'll probably be hearing more. And that is the promise there so far. What we've seen is infinite memory is possible. So while these neurons in models perform like humans, reasoning by analogy is going to start failing us soon because they're doing things that humans don't do. So arguably they could be way more efficient than we are.
You're referring to the infinite context window that Google put out, right?
Correct.
That still blows my mind. Literally infinite. But yeah, just wanted to know because I wanted to validate the accuracy of what I was about to post. Thanks.
Yeah, that paper follows, I think, about 4-ish months ago, Gemini 1.5 coming out and demonstrating they could scale up to 0.2% of Wikipedia in tokens as input. And they stated that the only reason why they stopped was because they didn't see any difference between 0.02 and 0.2. So there was no point in continuing.
So this thing can digest a library.
Basically, yeah. So the key reason why that's important is because if you think of ChatGPT and others, there's been this notion of like, okay, well, it's stuck in September 2022. If you can instead make it where you have this live repository of information and you include that with every time a question is being asked, then it's always going to be up to date. It's a very different thing. But the promise of continuous learning and these infinite context windows, it provides an alternative to what's normally called federated learning for Tesla. So you could have your vehicle, every time you get a software update, it probably forgets some of your experiences, but over time, as you're driving around, it would feel like it has memory about your custom driving takeover, etc. I doubt that Tesla ends up using this, but it's possible.
Andrew.
Yeah, I happen to be very focused on this particular area where it's possible we could be using hyperdisks. And the theory is, well, this part's already proven to be pretty true, is that the more we load the disk, the faster the IOPS are, it's closer to RAM-like speeds. And so it's no longer this time where there's a few implications. One is augmenting models becomes a lot easier. Tuning, training becomes a lot easier in theory. The cost of entry for a company that wants to become, we're already seeing it emerging. All the robotics innovations happening that feel like they're occurring overnight, and all the improvements to new models like music. We've all seen it. It's a result of these kind of new capabilities using the new hardware and the new architectures. And I think that we're just scratching the surface. If I'm right, we're blowing well past something that's AGI capable. And they've probably already done it in a few labs. I'm pretty bullish on this. I think it's been done multiple times over. I'm sure OpenAI and Google DeepMind have both done it. And it really is just, it's not even a very high cost of compute when I look at what I think is minimally viable to run this software. It's probably something in the order of 2 nodes, maybe 3, and you have 2 layers, 2 neural networking layers running. And then it's even possible, like, this one factor of the hyperdisk drive is really important. But now we could pretty much just snap on TPUs as needed. So when you think of that, it's like an infinite scale. It's pretty awe-inspiring when you think of it. Like, I think we're quickly approaching a point where all these seemingly complex problems are going to be solved, not overnight, but within a year. That's my prediction.
Yeah, just to walk this back a little bit, like Machine and I were talking about earlier, it's only true so long as the parameters overfit. The laws of compression still hold. You can't stick more data into bits than you have bits. So nothing comes for free. The papers are often written bombastically. It doesn't really mean infinite. It means like infinite relative to human written data.
It's just practically infinite.
Adrian?
Yeah, a little bit of an AGI thing here, since we're kind of like still lingering on this. I have a specific issue with people saying that AGI is like here. I would say that AGI in terms of its components is here, not the actual thing itself. Now, Meta, do correct me on this if I'm wrong, but I feel like AGI will just be almost like some sort of librarian where you have purpose-specific AIs doing what they are supposed to do, and then you have a librarian or some sort of curator that sits on top of all of this, essentially saying, okay, here, the human wants this specific task done. Let me divide this up and start delegating this amongst the purpose-specific AIs that I have. Like, for instance, ChatGPT is not going to drive your fucking car. FSD is going to drive your car. But you can tell FSD where to go based on something such as what Grok or ChatGPT could say here. Human wants to go to this restaurant. He's very hungry, probably wants a steak. Where can we get this? How much money does he have? Does he have a history of wanting to save it? Then selects a restaurant out of the city somewhere and then says, okay, here, you need to go over here. Car knows where to go. There you go, finished. Like, am I accurate here?
Yeah, it's called Mixture of Experts, MOE. These papers were written in 2018.
I mean, humans are basically like that. We have different types of expertise that it kind of like lives within the same sort of conscious sphere. We can drive a bike. Like, yeah. Cortexes, my bad.
Wes.
I think I've lost the bet.
Well, I'm glad Yaman jumped out of the bet, so at least I won one. Machine,
Yeah.
it's down to you and me.
Yep. I've lost the bet. I can't get it to fail. I drove over 100 miles today. I honestly can't get it to
You're
fail.
trying to break the machine?
Yeah, totally. That's what we do. That's how we build shit. We try to break it. If you can't break it, you ship it. So anyway, I can't break it. I don't know if anybody else can. You know, with public roads, with lines, not parking lots, not parking.
Which mode are you using?
Obviously not construction 3.4.
No, I mean the
So
mode,
this is,
because with FSD you can select, see if it's more assertive or so. Well, which are you using?
oh, chill. I just tried chill.
That explains it, yeah.
That's,
Because I've tried it on
yeah.
assertive and it's fucking up.
Yeah, that's interesting. But the idea that we just need to solve it for one case, for the generalized case of every road, everywhere, all public roads, like I can't break it. So I'm gonna keep driving, obviously, but I'll be over 1,000 miles here in probably 3 weeks because I'm gonna drive a lot. It's kind of sucks that I won't be driving Cybertruck, but I'll drive my FSD enabled cars, and I'm gonna keep trying to break it. But I concede on the bet.
Get more miles west because I got another bet with Yaman that I also need to win on miles.
Okay, sounds good.
Just for the record, you can't officially jump out of a bet. Once you're in the bet, you can't concede, like jump out.
Oh, but you were the
So,
one. You were the one who wanted to jump out of the bet. You want
well,
the
I
part of the
was,
win
I
now?
was saying, I'm saying in jest, like I'm not saying, jokingly. We're in the bet together. I know you want to jump ship, but let's see, AE.
Hi. Yeah, I had a question regarding disengagements. I had a couple of critical disengagements in last couple of weeks. I've been using 3.3.
Okay, I'm jumping off the bet now.
I just want to understand better, how Tesla treats these disengagements. I mean, wouldn't it make sense to have some sort of UI accessible by users to see what is happening with this data that how they're treating it, and how can we make sure that FSD's next version is going to handle this better? Yeah, for example, last night I had an issue where it literally started driving on the wrong side of the road after getting out of a parking lot. Yeah, I'm just curious. It almost feels like it's having a bad day some days, and some other days it's driving very smooth. Other days started driving very jittery, undecisive turns, things like that. I don't know if you guys have any insights into this. Thank you.
Meta.
There is a UI. Every time you disengage, it pops up a little thing that says, why did you do it? You press the speaker button and you can go ahead and tell it why. It'll transcribe that and that'll get back to the team. So I encourage you to do that. That would be helpful for the team.
Oh no, yeah, I do that, but after that, I don't know what happens to that data or that situation. I just want to understand what is the outcome. Would be Tesla users, can we see some sort of outcome of that disengagement where things are fixed? I feel like it's weird not to have any sort of feedback once we give the feedback.
You get the feedback the next time you get another version of FSD, and subsequently down the line when it gets better. If they had to follow up with every single person who filed those tickets, that would be unnecessary work, in my opinion. So that's probably why they're just not going to spend the time doing it.
Yeah, totally agree. But I'm also curious, how do they know, which are these critical disengagements, and how do they know, it is fixed properly in the next release? Is there any human involvement in this, or is it all machines doing it?
Sorry, not to dominate the topic, but there are humans involved. But Operation Vacation was around the idea of removing humans from the loop as much as possible. The critical disengagement terminology is coming from what we externally have tried to describe this as. I don't know if we've seen Tesla call it that, but conceptually, you can think of it. The way Waymo described it was in their safety report. There's a critical harm, and the way they described that is robbery, physical collision, or physical harm. So collision, physical harm to the vehicle, or physical harm to the passenger, or robbery. Those were the three scenarios that they described. How they cluster those things, that's a different problem. That's more of, as they're getting a ton of disengagements, they just need to do coarse clustering, and then as those disengagements gets smaller in size, they can do more and more granular clustering. So as long as you're filling up your to-do list with work to do, that's all that matters.
Maria Luisa. Maria, you may unmute yourself and go ahead. Jim Wong.
Oh, hi. Yeah, I have. Sorry, I was just.
Jim, go ahead. Do you want to know? Go ahead.
Hi. So I have a question for Meta and Machine and anyone with AI knowledge. So do we know if Tesla is using the disengagement data to optimize a loss function for their model, or are they just using the disengagement data to identify broad areas of improvement and then searching for examples of human drivers handling that situation and training the model on that situation?
I don't think we've seen any public reports of them talking about using it to optimize for loss. They could define loss in many different ways, but the problem with using disengagement data to optimize for loss is when they improve the model, there's no way to test if the new model would have led to a disengagement in the same scenario. So my guess is they're using it purely for selecting and curating training data. And then the loss functions are based on the policies that they write in the cloud for teaching. It would be things like, don't jerk more than 6 meters per second cubed, don't go over a line, etc. And even though the model in the car might make those mistakes, in the cloud, the teacher model has way more parameters, it has way more time. You can spend an hour on a 10-minute clip. So you have all these different ways you can play with temporal and deep thinking to allow the model to be much more pedantic about what it's grading.
So in that case, I'm just curious, why are they pushing so hard for more FSD specific data rather than, keeping a large amount of human driven data? So like they're pushing for it. They're cutting the price. Elon wants everyone doing a test drive. The doing the free trial. All these things is saying they want more disengagement data. Um, and if it's just for targeting, they don't need that much, do they?
They do. So the within observational data, there's two classes. One is what you're using for knowing that you've gotten things wrong, that they've gotten tons of data with shadow mode. But then you have your unknown unknowns where you don't know if you got it wrong, you don't know if you got it right. So a scenario would be you're making a right turn and the human turns at say 10 degrees and the model wanted to turn at 11 degrees. Would that have led to a disengagement? You don't know. So you're both the author of the model that makes the prediction and the triggers that tell it when it's wrong. So how do you test those triggers? You need to get people actually start driving it so that you can continue to refine those triggers, because those triggers lead to selection of that data in the fleet.
Thanks. That's helpful.
Do you want to know? Can you give us a couple sentences on your background?
Sure. I actually I've been a Tesla investor since like 2015. Actually, some of you might have known. I'm Vladimir Grinchpan's son, V Grinchpan on Twitter.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I have a background in economics and I work in actually utilities. So, and then I've been a Tesla owner since 2021.
Your father was extremely helpful for me in 2018, 2019, answering a lot of the questions, and great man.
I really appreciate that. Unfortunately, he passed away last year after a long fight with cancer. So that was tough.
Sorry for your loss, and I'm glad that I got a chance to interact with him over the years. So you're always welcome to the speaker boards, and thank you for the great questions for Meta, and good to have you in the space. All right, this space has been going on for 4 hours. It's been an amazing day. We're gonna leave it here, and we're gonna come back tomorrow. Thank you very much, everybody. If you'd like to support the space, the link is at the top of your screens. I'm really happy with how this space is shaping up, the direction it's going. It's growing with high quality, and we're going to keep that going. Thank you, and enjoy your evenings.